A natural disaster turned people into zombies, and they didn't even have a choice in the matter. Those who managed to survive were hunted down. And among them was a pregnant woman desperately trying to stay hidden from a creepy bastard who was following her. That day luck seemed to be on her side. The monster's attention was drawn away by a couple in the hallway. But soon more mutated humans showed up. The guy's girlfriend was killed. And later he became the dinner for one of those filthy creatures. It was a bloody mess, the entire place crawling with monsters. And in the middle of it all, that pregnant woman tried her best to hide. But she was already bitten and her body was starting to mutate. Time was running out. She needed to give birth before she turned into one of them. She stuffed a piece of cloth in her mouth to keep quiet and braced herself for the pain of childbirth. She could hear the screams of those around her as everyone in the apartments was getting ripped apart. Her mutation was getting worse. But she pushed hard, determined to survive and bring her baby into the world before it was too late. 7 years later, the place is still crawling with monsters. And in one of the apartments we find a little girl trembling in the quiet corner. She hears the heavy footsteps of a monster approaching. Panicking, she presses her hand over her mouth, hoping not to make a sound, but it's no use because the monster finds her anyway. In a desperate attempt to escape, the girl tries to run, but she's caught. The creature opens its mouth wide, ready to take a bite out of her, but don't be too sad. This mutated monster isn't about to harm her, it's actually her mother. And they're just playing a twisted game of hide and seek. Yes, the mutated creature is the same pregnant woman from 7 years ago. And the little girl is Chuck Buck, her daughter, despite everything. The monster mother is grateful to have been blessed with the title of mom. Later, Chuck Buck can be seen stubbornly insisting on going outside, but her mother refuses, which makes the girl very sad. She begins to cry, expressing her wish to go with her mom and find Gumball. You might be wondering what Gumball actually is, but you will know about it soon enough. The monster mother tells Chuck Buck to keep quiet. But the look on her daughter's face softens her heart. She gently tries to remind Chuck Buck that it's too dangerous outside, but she promises that she'll bring Gumball back and return as soon as possible. Later, the monster mother roams the streets where monsters still roam freely. As she walks, one of the creatures lunges at her. She quickly dodges and stabs it with her sharp tentacle-like thing. The monster is paralyzed and collapses to the ground. The sight of the fallen creature makes her mouth water and she indulges in a feast. The taste is strange, but at least her hunger is satisfied. As she is done eating, she suddenly notices a couple of survivors struggling to fight against the mutated monsters. One man holds a torch while the other aims a gun. The mother finds it odd that these fools are practically inviting their own demise by venturing here so late at night. What makes it worse is the fact that the torchlight and gunfire are only making the monsters more aggressive. Acting quickly, she throws 2 rocks at them. One shatters the flashlight, plunging the area into darkness, while the other strikes the guy with the gun squarely on the head. After putting the gunman out of commission, she viciously approaches the torchbearer. What happens next? Well, only the heavens know. Later, we see this guy wandering around completely out of breath. Apparently he's been attacked by some survivors who stole his weapon and supplies. As he looks for a place to hide, he suddenly encounters the monster mother. She quickly launches one of her tentacles at him. To attack, surprisingly, she stops her sharp needle mid-strike because, as fate would have it, this guy is actually Gumball. The very person the little girl Chuck Buck had been talking about. The monster lady instantly pulls him into a hug while Gumball is sweating his balls. Because she nearly scared the life out of him, he is quite shocked to see that not only did she come to find him, but she somehow retrieved his backpack from the robbers, as well as for the robber who took Gumball's bag. He now finds himself cornered by a horde of monsters. All he can do is cry out in terror before meeting a gruesome end as a delicious meal for the creatures. The scene then transitions to about 7 years earlier. We see a younger Gumball wandering around aimlessly searching for something seemingly useful. And that is when he stumbles across a flashlight. After getting his hand on this treasure, he considers heading back, knowing venturing further might mean running into monsters. But curiosity wins, and he ventures deeper inside. As he walks through a desolate building, he notices noise coming from one of the rooms. Cautiously, he approaches with his gun raised and flashlight pointed ahead. What he finds is shocking: a limbless monster crawling on the floor. Gandalf has no clue what's going on. Maybe this monster was attacked by something, but either way it's a red flag. He spins on his heels to leave, but just as he's about to go, he hears a voice coming from the same room down the corridor. He musters up the courage to investigate even though he could have easily walked away and searched for somewhere else to hide, but he's intrigued by the sound. A faint noise that seems almost impossible to hear in a place like this. What he sees is absolutely surprising. There's a string aimed at his throat. Terrifying and surprising in itself. But what shocks him more is the sight of a bloodthirsty monster feeding a baby. Which is far more startling than anything he could have imagined. This is how he met her, and now in the present that same mother is taking down monsters like they're nothing. He's absolutely fascinated and honestly pretty glad to have such a strong and powerful woman as his wife. Suddenly they reach a dead end of the building. The only way to escape the monsters pursuing them is to jump over. The guy pulls out his gun, confident he can take care of things, but just as they both prepare to face the horde of monsters ahead, someone suddenly yanks Gamdal from behind. The girl quickly grabs his hand and clutches an iron rod jutting out from the floor, refusing to let go of her husband. On the other hand, Gamdal feels as if his leg is being torn apart by the force of the monster trying to push him down. The monster trying to snatch Gamdal is no ordinary creature. That disgusting bastard is absolutely eager for some fresh meat. Meanwhile, let's not forget about little Chuck Buck. She's just laying around in her home, scribbling down drawings of herself, her mother, and Gamdal. She can't wait for him to return, as she's dearly hoping to play with him back to Gombold. He's hanging in the balance between life and death. Monsters from above are trying to catch them alive, and those below are waiting for the couple to fall, so they can feast on some fresh meat. Even the powerful mother is struggling to maintain her grip. Her hands are trembling, and she knows that if she doesn't act soon, they're both going to die here. Finally, she makes a decision. She lets go of the iron rod. As the monster pulls them down, she quickly uses her tentacles to grab one of the other monsters from the building and slams it down onto the huge monster's head. The big monster is disoriented, giving the monster mother a perfect opening. She drills her sharp needle into the monster's tongue, which had been holding onto Gumball's feet. As the tongue finally lets go, the mother feels a wave of relief. Everything worked out perfectly now. All they need to do is land properly, deal with the leftovers on the ground, and she can protect Gumball. But it looks like Gumball has some other plans. He grabs her closer tightly and lands right on the monster's filthy mug. Thankfully, the large bag Gumball was carrying softens their impact, making the fall less brutal. Gumball then quickly jumps off from the mouth of the monster and rolls over the ground in order to absorb the impact. Wasting no time, he regains his footing, grabs his wife, and starts running as fast as he can. The big monster, on the other hand, is absolutely enraged to see its snack escaping its grasp. As they run, the monster mother berates Gamdal for his reckless stunt. She points out that he got himself injured while jumping and running with her. Since he is Chuckbox's father, it would be a disaster for their family if he gets hurt. But Gamdal seems far more concerned about her. He apologizes, admitting that it's all his fault they're in such a dangerous situation to begin with. The monster mother can't help but think this guy is a total nutcase. He literally got himself injured protecting her. Yet he's still more worried about her well-being than his own. While she's busy berating Gundal about his safety, she is suddenly struck by a sharp fang that drills right through her belly. It's that same hungry monster fighting back with a vengeance. This creepy sucker isn't about to let its delicious prey escape so easily. Despite the large hole in her belly, the monster mother stubbornly claims it's just a scratch, but then another monster grabs her by the throat. Gamdal, desperate to help, starts rummaging through his giant bag. He's sure he has just the thing that could turn the tide in their favor. But he needs a moment to find it while the monsters chase them down. The monster mother uses her tentacle-like appendages to pierce through the monsters following her, fending them off as best she can. After a frantic search, Gumball finally finds what he's looking for: a grenade. As soon as he throws them down toward the monsters, they explode with a massive bang, taking out several of the creatures in one go. The game is still on though. Gandalf pulls out even more grenades, tossing them at the remaining monsters. The critters chasing them are roasted and obliterated in fiery explosions. Although they've dealt with the regular-sized monsters, there's still this massive jackass who refuses to give up. They both take a moment to consider what their next move should be, and that is when the monster mother finally decides to do something daring. She grabs the grenade from her husband and leaps into the air just as the monster launches its fangs and tentacles at them. Gundal quickly drops to the ground, eyes wide open, watching in awe as the monster mother pulls the pin from the grenade. With a powerful kick, she launches it right at the bastard's face. The giant monster opens its mouth, thinking it's about to devour fresh meat. But instead the grenade lands right inside. The explosion obliterates the monster's head. In a split second afterwards, the monster mother flips the creature the middle finger. As a sign of victory, while Gamdal watches with pride, glad to see his badass wife handle the situation. Like a pro with everything finally taken care of, they make their way to one of the nearby apartments. Once inside, the monster mother removes her clothes. And Gamdal notices with relief that her belly wound has already healed. She playfully reminds him that he should always be the careful one. As he's her family's protector, now that everything's settled, they decide it's time to find their daughter, who must be waiting for them. When they reach the apartment, Gumball calls out to her and little Chuck Bak rushes toward her daddy. They share a passionate and adorable hug. Full of love and relief, Chuck Bak proudly shows her father the painting she made, and Gamdal gives her a thumbs up, glad to see she finished them. As a reward, he pulls out a bar of chocolate and offers it to her, causing the little one to jump in happiness. Thrilled by the sweet treat, the monster mother watches the scene before her, looking at her family with warm, loving eyes, no matter how difficult it is to survive in this world. Whenever she sees her daughter smile, she feels re-energized. In that moment, she knows that no matter what happens, she will protect her dear family at all costs. As the trio enjoys their happiness, there's someone standing just outside their apartment. From the stranger's expression, it's clear she can't stand seeing this little family so content. Meanwhile, inside, the family shares a dinner together, and both parents feel a deep sense of joy watching their little daughter eat so happily. Chuck Buck then decides to share the food with her parents. First, she offers a bite to Gumball, serving it with her own hands. Then it's time for her mother to have a spoonful of rice. But the mother hesitates. The little one insists her mother take a bite. But the lady hesitates. That's when Gumball gently reminds their daughter that mommy is already full, but Chuck Bak does not seem to think that way, especially since she hasn't seen her mother eat anything at all. Gumball tries to argue, claiming that he's seen her eat plenty of times. At this, Chuck Bak becomes genuinely curious. She wants to know how her mother eats food, since she's never seen her do it before. The mother gently grabs Chuck Bak's hand and tries to reassure her, telling her that she doesn't need any food, so the little one should just enjoy eating it herself. The dejected girl just starts digging into her food with a sad expression. Later, we see her holding a cookie. And with a joyful smile, she tells her mother that this cookie is really delicious. She insists that her mother should try it, sharing her favorite snack with her. Chuck Bak keeps urging her mother to have a bite, which only makes the woman feel more anxious and unsure about how to turn down her daughter without hurting her feelings. Eventually, the mother gives in to the girl's persistent pleas. With trembling hands, she reluctantly reaches for the cookie, but just as she does, Chuck Bak quickly pulls the cookie back because she also wants to eat some of the cookie as well. She tries to break the cookie in half but ends up with 2 uneven pieces. Chuck Bak faces a great dilemma: whether to keep the larger piece of the cookie for herself or give it to her mother. Eventually, she gives in to her urges and offers the smaller piece to her mother, but once again the mother hesitates. By the look on Chuck Buck's face, it's clear that the little girl really wants to eat the whole cookie herself. Not wanting to force her mother to eat, Chuck Buck decides to just eat it all by herself. However, she quickly snaps out of her hungry thoughts when she remembers that she was supposed to make her mother eat the cookie. Gumball also chimes in and happily asks for a bite. But Chuck Buck, too eager to enjoy the treat, ends up devouring the whole thing and decides to try again with another cookie. Later, Chuck Buck can be seen pestering her mother to eat random things all the time. At some point, the monster mother grows increasingly annoyed and snaps at her daughter. With her usual sign language, she tells Chuck Buck to stop bothering her and asks if she enjoys teasing mommy so much. Due to her mother's outburst, Chuck Buck gets on the brink of tears, as she never intended to upset her mother. She tries to explain to her mother that she was just worried about her. She had never seen her mother eat anything, and she thought maybe her mother must be hungry. The monster mother, feeling the weight of her daughter's concern, gently places her finger on Chuck Buck's little palm and finally decides it's time to tell her the full truth. She had been hiding the truth for so long, and now, seeing how it upset her daughter, she realizes she can't keep the secret any longer. With a deep breath, the mother is about to tell Chuck Buck that she only craves flesh and meat. But as soon as she touches her daughter's palm, her monstrous urges flare up. A drop of blood from Chuck Buck's nose hangs out. and the mother's instincts scream to devour her child no matter the cost. The scene shifts, and the only thing we hear is the slam of a door. Gandalf hears the door slam and rushes to check on the situation. But when he looks around, he finds the house empty. And Chuck Buck confirms that her mother has gone outside. For some reason outside, the monster mother is seen tearing into another creature. She couldn't control her urges when she noticed the blood of her daughter. So she ran out as fast as she could, seeking to devour this monster in order to keep her instincts in check. Later, the family of 3 sleeps together on one bed with Chuck Box nestled between her parents. The monster mother reflects on how she never realized how sweet a child's blood could be. From this point on, she promises to be extra careful in front of her daughter, and vows to protect her forever. The next day dawns, and the father flashes a big smile. Before leaving for the day, he tells his family to stay safe until he returns and reminds the little one not to wake her mother. Since she needs her rest, Chuck Buck acknowledges this and requests her father bring her a chocolate bar. With that, he leaves. And as soon as he's gone, a mischievous smile spreads across the little girl's face. Now that her mother is asleep, Chuck Box decides to venture out. She prepares herself and steps outside into the world. She spots a dead monster's body but walks past it without a care in the world. As she roams around, she notices some other people in the streets as well. She then approaches a bloodied wall, where she makes a quick doodle, and after finishing, she continues on her way. Chuck Block rummages through the rubble of several dead bodies, and after some searching, she finally finds a few candies. She's absolutely overjoyed at her discovery. Proud of her find, she eagerly imagines how her parents will praise her for such a rare treasure. But she's not sure if she should even tell them that she found them outside. Anyway, she soon starts walking again, and her next goal is to find this person called Hira. Meanwhile, these 2 guys spot our little one walking down the street. They're both thrilled to see a kid, as they never expected to find one. Here, the guy with the dagger is already thinking about negotiating a hefty ransom from her family. So he is looking forward to taking her no matter what. His female partner, however, points out that if the girl is an orphan, they'd have no use for her. The dagger guy quickly brushes off the concern, reminding her how valuable children are in the market. Now that she thinks about it, she entertains the thought of selling the child to a cannibal tribe for a high price. I will be honest, I don't know if she is a male or female, but let's call her female until we are told otherwise. Up ahead, the path splits, and the little one quickly turns to the right. The Bat Lady picks up her pace, eager to catch the child before anyone else does, but little do they know, they're the ones who are about to become prey. Someone with an axe in their hands appears, and without hesitation the person swings it, taking down the dagger-wielding bastard right away. The lady stops and turns around only to see a person with white hair and her friend nearly dead on the ground. But this doesn't scare her. She turns to face the new threat, asking who the hell this person is. She wonders if this white-haired might be the girl's guardian. The whitehead just stares at her with lifeless eyes. And it looks like this whitehead is a lady as well. The ponytail then decides to play dirty, and tries to distract the whitehead by making her think that someone is behind her. When whitehead turns around, the ponytail charges at her with a bat in hand. Meanwhile, whitehead lady can't seem to find anyone behind her. The ponytail thinks she's outsmarted her, having tricked this whitehead into believing someone was approaching from behind, but little does she know she's the one who's about to be screwed. In a blink of an eye, this whitehead cuts her throat with a single swing of his axe. I'm honestly glad that Ponytail Shithead is dead. We now won't have to figure out if this creepy sucker was a lady or a guy. Meanwhile, Chuck Box stands quietly behind the wall, trembling as she hears footsteps approaching. Eventually, the little one is discovered by the white-haired woman, but as soon as the little one looks at her, we learn that this woman is actually Hira, the one our little girl had been searching for. Suddenly, a monster crawls up and leaps at the woman, but Hira crushes it with her axe. As soon as the injured monster touches the sunlight, it disintegrates into dust. Hira turns to the little one and reminds her once again that she must always check before entering dark places. Most importantly, she asks why the little one is even outside and where her mommy is. Chuck Buck looks absolutely terrified, and eventually she ends up taking a bonk over her head. Hira had given clear instructions over the years: always check for monsters before entering dark places, always carry a flashlight or a weapon. Never go to a place where you hear strange noises. And never follow strangers other than mommy, daddy, and Hira herself, the most important rule. Never go outside alone. Hira is frustrated that despite drilling these rules into her for years, the little one still hasn't learned. She sternly tells her to never break these rules again. But Chuck Buck quickly protests, claiming she's old enough to go outside. Of course, Hira gives her a deadly glare, enough to make the little one fall silent and humbled. Anyway, since Chuck Buck is so determined to go outside, Hira decides to take her somewhere. Grown ups go. Chuck Block lights up like a kid at the prospect of another adventure. Although she was excited at first, all her enthusiasm fades when she finds herself in a pitch-black place. Because she doesn't really like the dark. She calls out to Hira but gets no response to her pleas. Once Chuck Buck is finally terrified to her core, Hira finally answers, asking if she still wants to act like a grown-up to scare the little one even more. Hira reminds her that monsters love to dwell in dark places like this. Since adults come here because they can find valuable things, this place is always filled with bloody fights. Suddenly the little one stumbles over something and falls to the ground. She has no idea what she bumped into, but when she pulls her hand from the ground, her face goes pale. As she notices blood all over her hand, this is the breaking point. The girl finally loses her will to stay and begs to get out, pleading to be taken outside. But all her cries fall on deaf ears. She becomes teary-eyed and sweaty, unable to see anything around her. She is finally terrified by the realization that adults come here every day to fight for food. Finally, Hira reappears, reminding the little girl that this is where adults come despite their own fears. Because survival necessitates it, even grown ups are reluctant to visit such perilous places. But their need for sustenance leaves them with no alternative. She wants Chuck Buck to keep this lesson in mind. Then she tells her it's time to leave. Together they start walking out of this chaotic place, stepping past hordes of monster corpses lying scattered on the ground. Once they finally reach the apartments, Hira finally decides to part ways, but promises to meet the little girl again when she comes outside with her mother and father. She also firmly warns Chuck Buck not to tell her parents anything about what happened. Suddenly the little one makes an unusual request, asking Hira to sit down. When Hira obliges, Chuck Buck gives her a playful bonk on the head, which is supposed to be the payback for making her cry earlier. Afterward, Chuck Buck hands Hira a piece of candy she had found during her adventure. With that, she waves goodbye to Hira, a big smile on her face as she heads home. This little candy leaves a big impression on Hira, and she can't help but crack a smile, realizing that the little girl has gotten much stronger than she expected. It makes her believe that Chuck Buck is going to grow into a fascinating person. Meanwhile, as Chuck Buck reaches for the doorknob to open the door, she notices that the color of her finger has changed. The scene transitions back to the past. During winter, we see Chuck Buck's mother and father sifting through the rubble in search of something valuable. It's then that the father finds a scarf and drapes it around the monster mother's neck. A warm gesture that leaves her blushing, touched by the thoughtful gift. As they share a passionate hug, they momentarily forget about their daughter. The father calls out for Chuck Buck, but soon realizes she's nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, the little one is off on her own adventure, exploring in search of something useful. That's when she encounters Hira for the first time, sitting on the ground, seemingly injured. It's a real struggle for Hira to even turn her head toward Chuck Buck. But when she does, the first thing she says is for the girl to get lost. But Chuck Buck isn't sure if she should leave someone injured like this. Hira shoots her a cold glance, attempting to scare her off, but those sharp eyes fail to intimidate the little girl. Instead, Chuck Buck curiously and adorably asks what get lost even means, since she doesn't understand the phrase. Hira, now more specific, tells her to go back to her parents and stop being such a nuisance. But instead of complying, Chuck Buck grabs Hira's injured hand and begins blowing warm air on her cold, frozen arm in an attempt to warm it up. Hira quickly uses her other hand to yank the girl away, but she stops mid-motion when she notices how passionately Chuck Buck is trying to help her. Well, this is how they met each other in the past. Suddenly, the little one wakes up from the dream she just had, but after a moment she drifts back to sleep. Meanwhile, her parents are seen hiding from the monsters. Frustrated that the dark clouds have caused the creatures to roam around even during the day, the mother tells her husband that there's nothing left here, and what's worse is that this was the last pharmacy in the area. Gandalf decides to take a rest. But the mother can't bring herself to rest for even a second until she's able to treat her daughter's finger. She's terrified that something might be seriously wrong with it. The big guy tries to reassure her, telling her not to be so hard on herself, and that there must be a way to fix it, but the mother blames herself. Convinced it's her fault that her daughter's finger ended up like this, Gumball looks concerned as he sees her blaming herself. And finally he reaches his breaking point. He sighs deeply and reminds her that their frantic search for medicine isn't getting them anywhere. They've searched several shops and pharmacies for days and found nothing. This only makes him believe they've been foolish from the start. He decides they should head to Hope Village since he's heard there's a doctor there, and as far as he knows that doctor is their only hope. However, they'll have to pay an entrance fee to get in. The biggest problem, though, is that the entrance fee is quite particular. They only accept something useful and valuable in exchange, and Gumball isn't sure where they can find something like that. That's when she begins tapping on the palm of his hand, like she usually does, and what she tells him really terrifies him, although I can't fully understand her hand gestures. It looks like she wants to enter Dungeon Village to grab something valuable, but her husband reminds her that that place is literally a monster's nest. Even for her, the lady is sure that the monsters are nothing to her, so it's worth the risk. She claims she has experience with these kinds of places. And it shouldn't be too hard for her. All she needs to do is avoid running into the dungeon's master, since this is beyond what he can handle. Gumball agrees to stay home with Chuck Buck and gives her permission to go. Before they part, he decides to give her the flashlight. But as soon as he opens the bag, he finds the little one peacefully napping inside. At first, both parents don't believe their eyes and rub them. But when they look again, they realize she's really in the bag. This leaves them both sweating from the shock. Once the little one opens her groggy eyes, she's met with the sharp gaze of her mother. Chuck Buck goes blank when she realizes she's been caught, so she decides to act like a magician who just popped out of a bag, but her trick does not work. And she ends up getting a bonk on the head from her mom and a lot of earful from her dad. Daddy's absolutely pissed. And this is probably the first time we've seen him so angry with the little one, but as surprising as it is, he's just acting as a translator for the angry mom. The mom further tells the big guy that for now they should head back home as soon as possible, since there's no time to argue. As the mother begins her journey, Chuck Box starts pestering her, asking where she's going. She is sure her mother is heading somewhere dangerous because of her, so she doesn't want her to go and begs her to just come back home with her, but the mother doesn't listen and starts walking her own path, leaving the girl in the capable hands of her husband. Once the mother finally vanishes from sight, Chuck Bach is filled with regret, thinking that she's the reason her mom left. Gumball tries to reassure her that she'll be back soon, and that they should head back home too, but suddenly the big guy's belly starts to hurt, and he decides it's time for a bathroom break. As he goes off to take a dump, he leaves his girl behind, telling her to stay there until he's done. Meanwhile, Chuck Bach's mind starts drifting to the worst possible thoughts. She remembers the terrifying experience she had in that dark place, and the thought that her mother might be heading there is just traumatizing to her. Meanwhile, the monster mother is also walking down to her next destination with a sad look on her face. She can't shake off the image of her girl's sad face. When she tried to stop her, now she's regretting leaving without properly reassuring her. She thinks it's her fault for not checking the bag before heading out on her adventure. As she's lost in her thoughts, the monsters around her start surrounding a cardboard box, and they can smell something delicious. It's food. It looks like there's something living under the cardboard because we can clearly hear voices. All the monsters quickly rush to the box, but soon realize there's nothing there. Well, of course, it was our little girl under that cardboard box. And her mother quickly swoops in to save her before those monsters could feed on her. As soon as she picks up her little one, all of the monsters charge at her. But the lady quickly starts dashing away, stepping right over the monsters. One of the monsters throws its tentacles, but she slices them down like they're nothing, and all the other filthy monsters meet the same fate. She's literally cutting them down like they're nothing more than vegetables. But after a while, she starts getting exhausted. And if this keeps going on, it will be hard for her to keep fighting. The little one quickly sticks her finger out and points to the sky. When the mother looks up, she notices that the clouds have begun to disperse. As the intensity of the light increases, the monsters start to feel pain. All the monsters that were trying to eat our girl are now desperately running for their lives, looking for shade. The mother has no choice but to head straight into the dungeon, since the nearby buildings will be overrun by the panicking monsters trying to save themselves. Suddenly, a huge monster strikes the mother from behind, leaving the little one absolutely shocked. Despite the pain, the mother tries to swing her tentacle to take this bastard down. But this monster is too fast for its size, and unleashes a barrage of strikes right into the back of the desperate mother, who's doing her best to protect her child. Then, out of nowhere, someone throws an axe over the big fat bastard's head, knocking him down for good. The mother has no clue where the axe came from, but she doesn't have time to dwell on it and keeps running. We then see Gombold arriving at the entrance of the building where the monster mother went. He looks absolutely wiped out from the sprint he had to take. The building is overrun with monsters, and he can't go any further to search for his daughter. He blames himself, thinking it's all his fault for leaving her behind to take a bathroom break. Meanwhile, the person who threw the axe to save the monster mother is revealed. It's Hira. She walks up to Gundal and he's absolutely shocked. He has no clue who this stranger is, but before he can say anything, she lands a brutal whack on his face, knocking him down. At the same time, the monster mother is scolding the little one for following her into danger. She's furious that Chuck Buck didn't stay with her father, like she was told, but then the little one gently places her tiny finger on her mother's palm and tells her she was scared. She didn't want her mother to get hurt. Chukbok explains that she knows how much her mother and father struggle to provide for her. They never let her see the pain they go through, but she knows it's there. She doesn't want her mother to feel pain anymore because of her. Instead, she wants to stay by her side and make her feel better whenever she gets hurt. The mother's heart sinks as she looks at her daughter, and she eventually sighs, giving her a gentle, heartfelt hug. On the other hand, the monsters are already swarming the area. So to hide Chuck Block, the monster mother slips her under her shirt and starts walking through the mindless monsters. They just need to make it out of this building, and she tells Chuck Buck to hang tight, not wanting to bump into any of these monsters. But then one of the monsters gets way too close. So close that the monster mother starts to feel uncomfortable. She tries to stay calm and composed, knowing she mustn't react. If she does, it could provoke the monster and Chuck Buck would be in great danger. She whispers to the little one to not react to anything. The monster mother starts to feel like the monster is trying to whisper to her, telling her that what she's doing is all a pointless effort. But when she turns around to look, there's no monster in sight. She has no idea how a monster could disappear so quickly, but she just keeps walking, knowing the exit is almost there. Then suddenly a giant hand appears and tries to snatch her. She quickly jumps away, and the giant hand ends up grabbing a bunch of other monsters along with it. At first, she's disoriented, not knowing what happened. But when she notices this giant hand, she realizes it's the master of the dungeon. This monster isn't even concerned with the other monsters. It's just grabbing anything it can get its hands on. The hand swings again, grabbing another batch of monsters, and unfortunately that includes our monster mother. Luckily, it's only the mother who gets caught because Chuck Buck had already fallen to the ground. But when Chuck Buck sees her mother get caught, she bursts into tears. However, her mother tells her to run away. Surprisingly, Chuck Buck listens and starts running in the opposite direction instead of stubbornly staying where she was. As the monster retracts its hand, the monster mother gathers all her strength and scratches the monster hard across its hand. The pain causes the monster to twitch, and it instinctively lets go of its grip. As soon as she lands back on the ground, she starts dashing to find Chuck Buck. Meanwhile, somewhere in the building, we see this hot monster woman who is likely the dungeon master. The scene then zooms back to Chuck Buck, who's being chased by the mindless monsters. She's doing her best to outrun them, but tears are streaming down her face, and her next clumsy step causes her to fall. The monster is almost on top of her, ready to devour her, but just then another monster kills the one about to attack Chuck Block. This only terrifies her even more. The other monsters stand on the sidelines, paralyzed with fear, while the dominant monster looks forward to claiming its prize. As soon as the monster touches Chuck Block, all her fear causes her to go completely bonkers, and she literally pees herself out of fear, all while calling for her mommy. But this bastard of a monster just grabs her and starts taking her toward its mouth. Suddenly, the monster's nose picks up a strange scent, and it quickly goes into panic mode. Not only it, but all the other monsters start sweating and panic sets in. They begin running in the opposite direction as if their life is in danger. At first, Chuck Block doesn't understand what's happening, but then her nose also picks up a funky smell. Before she can react, she's hit by a blow from a monster behind her, and her candies fall to the ground. Out pops this mutated brat, who literally punches her from several feet away with his bare hand. The poor girl quickly extends her hand to grab the candies, but the monster snatches them off the ground first. This brat's only goal is to play with her. Chuck Buck begs him to give the candy back, explaining it's for her mom and dad. The mutated brat sniffs the candies, and without a second thought pops one of them into his mouth. The sight leaves Chuck Buck utterly devastated. Those were gifts for her parents. Gifts she found after so much effort. But this brat just gobbled it up. Angry Chuck Bak quickly punches the brat hard in the face, causing the candy to pop out of his mouth. She starts pinching his face out of frustration, clearly disregarding the fact that this little sucker is a literal monster. She is dealing with the brat in response, starts pinching her face too. And they both get caught up in this childish quarrel. As they go back and forth, it starts to look more like two kids playing around. Eventually the brat finally gives up after getting beaten up by our girl, and runs away crying. The lady, on the other hand, is just glad to have her candies back. The other monsters watching the fight are absolutely in awe. They're literally sweating bullets, shocked that she defeated that brat like it was nothing. They're stumbling in front of her, and as soon as she sneezes they scatter off in fear. Chuck Block has no clue why they're running. But as she thinks about it, she remembers that bad smell. She wonders if it's because of the stinky, gross smell she got from the brat, which probably made all the monsters run away. This realization boosts her confidence. Now she feels like there's literally nothing to fear. With that confidence, she starts running forward to find her mommy, but suddenly her dash is stopped when someone grabs her from behind. Bok Chuck hears two monsters talking to each other based on Bok Chuck's smell. They mistake her for the dungeon master's child. And what freaks them out more is the fact that she's human. They quickly realize that she must have had close contact with the dungeon master's child. She's soft and squishy, so they decide to take her with them. By the way, this monster lady's name is Diane. As they pinch the girl's cheeks, she trembles and says she wants to go to her mommy, asking them to help her find her. Diane pretends to be concerned when she hears this. But then she creeps up with a twisted smile, saying she'll be her mommy. Now they tease the little girl a bit, and then Dion's companion asks if they should hand her over to their father, but Dion insists on keeping the girl for herself. However, the hooded monster reminds her that they're here to help their father capture the dungeon master and eat him, so they should give this little girl to their father as a nutritious snack. But Dion reminds him that she's the one who found this little one, so she at least deserves one of her arms. This leaves Chuck Bak absolutely terrified. While the hooded monster starts drooling at the thought of taking a bite out of her, Chuck Buck trembles in fear. And right now all she wants is to find her mommy, but then she decides to do something in order to get herself out of this situation. She quickly spins around and starts calling out for her mommy. When the other monsters turn to look in the direction Chuck Buck is shouting, our little lady takes her chance and bolts out of there as fast as she can. The monsters just laugh, thinking it's cute how she looks running away with her tiny legs. But they quickly start following her with vicious plans in mind. Just as they're chasing her, they encounter a horde of scared monsters. And Chuck Bak takes advantage of the situation by running into the crowd to hide. The hooded monster slashes down all the other monsters in his path. But at the very least they have slowed down a little, giving Chuck Buck even more time to run. Diane launches one of her tentacle-like appendages, and she also starts taking down monsters as well. All the while Chuck Buck just dashes down and fades into the darkness. She stops and hides behind a pillar to save herself, but one of those filthy bastards quickly catch up to her. They promise to become her family and tell her to come to them, but the little one is just so scared at this point she might faint. It looks like her fear has started to cause her finger to mutate on its own. When she swings her hand, the impact of her finger literally cuts the hooded bastard's hand. At first the hooded bastard feels the pain, but it quickly intensifies. And slowly his entire hand starts to ache like hell. He spends his final moments writhing in agonizing pain, feeling like it's burning. Meanwhile, Chuck Buck has no idea what in the world is going on. She just stares at her hand. Meanwhile, Dion can be seen chomping through other monsters. She has no idea where her hooded friend has gone. And the thought of him eating that girl on his own is making her furious. She wants to be the one to take a bite of that soft skin, especially since she's never experienced anything so tender before. The idea of devouring a child is both thrilling and maddening to her. The lingering taste and smell of the girl's skin on her hand are enough to make her drool. But because Monster Mama has arrived, and she looks absolutely furious, seeing this twisted excuse of a lady fantasizing about eating her little girl has pushed her over the edge. You can only imagine how this is going to turn out for Dion. Meanwhile, the hooded bastard is still writhing in agony, feeling as if he's being burned alive. His screams echo through the space, making our little girl even more terrified out of her mind. When the pain becomes unbearable for the monster, he cuts off his own hand to get rid of the burning part. The hand falls to the ground. And although the bastard has lost his hand, he is at least relieved from the pain. But he's furious at the little one and plans to devour her alive to make up for the suffering she caused him. But before he can make his move, he gets struck by a hard blow to his back. That one blow sends the bastard flying. And the thing that hit him is actually that big bag Gamdal usually carries. When Chukbok turns around, she sees her absolutely enraged father walking toward the bastard who dared to touch his daughter. First things first, her dad checks on her and apologizes. Knowing she must have been terrified in there, suddenly he notices her finger has changed and he asks her about it, but the girl doesn't say anything. Instead, she starts crying, saying that Mama has been captured by some monsters. The hooded bastard, on the other hand, gets back up, and it looks like his severed hand is starting to grow back. He's absolutely ready to devour them both. But the monster gets confused when he sees the father casually rummaging through his bag, while calmly telling his daughter to stand behind him. The monster is bewildered. They're literally not even paying attention to him. This only riles him up more, so he charges at the duo without hesitation. Before he can get close though, Gamdal casually throws a brick straight at the bastard's filthy mug. It smacks him hard, and that's not the end of it. The absolute giga chad of a father is already holding another brick, ready to obliterate this sucker's face. The monster charges, and from the other side Gamdal is ready to launch the brick with lightning speed. As soon as he throws it, the brick goes flying. But the monster obliterates it with his hand mid-motion. However, that brick was just a distraction. Dozens of other bricks are almost upon him, and he barely has time to deflect them. So he brings his hand over his body and takes all the bricks head on, but Gandalf doesn't stop. He relentlessly continues his barrage. Each brick hitting harder than the last. He's getting stronger and stronger with every throw, determined to smash the monster into crumbs for putting his precious Chukbok in danger. Eventually the father exhausts all his bricks. That's when the monster takes his chance, grabbing Gumball with his tentacles. Making it hard for the poor father to move, the hooded bastard is feeling pretty smug, thinking that since Gumball is out of bricks, this will be a piece of cake for him. He tightens his grip on Gumball's throat, leaving the poor guy struggling for oxygen. Meanwhile, the monster is having the time of his life watching his prey struggle, but then the monster suddenly feels a chilling presence behind him. Before he even realizes it, Hira cuts his filthy hand clean off the bastard's bald head, is left sweating, realizing he's getting screwed over. Meanwhile, Hira looks as menacing as ever, telling this bastard to get ready to be completely screwed. The monster quickly starts to withdraw, but Hira chases him down with equal ferocity, going toe-to-toe with him. When he tries to swing his tentacles at her, she cuts them down like they're nothing. The father watches in awe, amazed that she cornered this monster with just an axe. Not only that, he's seen her slaughter countless monsters on the way here, and it makes him question how she still has the strength to do all this. She doesn't seem like a woman, she's literally a monster. A powerhouse. While the hooded monster is fighting, his mind drifts back to a moment when he was with Dion. There was another alien-like monster who questioned both the hooded guy and Dion about what makes monsters different from humans. Dion confidently replies that monsters are dumb while humans are not. The alien-like monster agrees, adding that humans are cunning and quick to adapt to their surroundings. But they are too weak. Monsters, on the other hand, are strong but idiots who act purely on instincts. So in comparison, both have distinct strengths and weaknesses. Meanwhile, the monster claims that he and someone like Dion aren't as weak as humans nor as stupid as monsters. Instead, they have the strength of both humans and monsters. And even monsters don't want to mess with them. This, he says, makes them the ideal species for surviving. In this kind of world, according to him, someone like them who are part of a cannibal tribe are the chosen ones, he tells Dan and the hooded bastard to be proud and grateful for it. Both agree, and the hooded bastard even addresses this ugly monster as father. I suppose he's the top dog they wanted to present Chukbok to. With that, the father orders both of them to take down the child of the dungeon master while he himself goes after the dungeon master. In the present, as the fight rages on, Gundal notices the hooded bastard about to make a sneaky move, so he quickly updates Hira. The lady, relying on her sharp instincts, ducks down to avoid the attack, then follows up with a deep cut into the bastard's belly, forcing him to stagger backward. But even after taking all that beating, the monster is sure that she can't defeat him. Just as his father said, he claims that he is the chosen one, and she can do nothing to stop him as he heals himself. He makes it clear that everyone is going to die here. With that, he charges back at her, but Hira stands her ground, not moving. It seems like she has no choice but to face this bastard head-on. But before she can get screwed over, the scene shifts to Monster Mama, who is relentlessly cutting down Diane. Diane is bewildered when she realizes that this monster woman has yellow eyes just like her father. But why is she attacking her like this? Not to mention she's extremely strong, and Dion finds out the hard way. One crushing blow from Monster Mama leaves Dion's mouth leaking blood. But Dion finally decides to get serious and is ready to see what our mama is capable of. Her tentacles quickly start transforming into something like centipede-like appendages. And the length and size of her tentacles increase as well. She throws her tentacles right at Mama, but Monster Mama isn't a slouch either. She gathers all the energy in her hands and slices through all of the tentacles heading her way. At this point, we can clearly see that Dion is struggling to get toe-to-toe with her. Meanwhile, it looks like Mama's power has been cranked up to another level. No matter how many times Diane tries to strike with her tentacles, Mama just dodges them left and right, which only serves to annoy Diane. The back and forth continues with Mama slowly overpowering Dion. At one point in the battle, Mama finally gets close to Dion, and her sharp tentacle is only a few inches away from piercing Dion's face. But since Dion can't dodge the upcoming attack, she puts her hand in front of her, at least saving her face from getting screwed over. That back and forth has really taken a heavy toll on Dion, and she can barely stand. Meanwhile, Mama just stands there cool as a cucumber. What's even more troublesome for Dion is that the injury Mama just inflicted is not healing. And she can't even feel it. At first she didn't realize it, but it looks like all of her injuries from this battle aren't healing either. This makes her think that maybe Mama is using poison, but by then it's already too late for Dion to realize this. All she can do is tremble helplessly. Since it's already a life or death situation, she decides to use her final resort. She quickly rips off her injured tentacle, which isn't healing, and she also separates her injured hand from her body. Then she launches at Mama like an angry cat. Mama finds it a drag, and definitely has no time for this child's play since she needs to find Chuck Buck, so she decides to end this right here. But Dion gets closer to Mama and quickly sprays some blood pouring out of her severed hand. The blood quickly starts blinding Mama's eyes, and this cowardly bitch begins to run for her life as fast as she can. Her first task now is to fight her hooded fellow Che-gun, because if he's with her she might have a chance of winning. But the said Che-gun is also getting his ass kicked by Hira, and by now he's lost all of his limbs. He's in no position to do anything to defeat his enemy. Meanwhile, Dion is running full speed calling out to Che-gun, but it's clear that Mama is not going to let this bitch off the hook that easily, and she's definitely not backing down until she gets her daughter back, who she believes is kidnapped by these suckers. The scene switches back to the exhausted Che-gun, although his entire body is bruised. His ego is even more bruised, because he can barely stomach the fact that he's getting his ass handed to him by this human, whom he considers nothing more than a weakling. Hira points out the confusion etched across the bastard's face, and she's sure he's wondering how a human far weaker than a monster could be stronger than him. But she lets him know the hard truth that she's not weaker than him. With that, she slams the bastard's head, leaving a gruesome splattering noise that echoes throughout the place. As surprising as it is, the splattering noise wasn't because of Hira's head smash. It was actually the sound of the monster piercing his own chest with his own hand. He believes that dying by his own hands is a much more honorable death than dying at the hands of this bastard of a lady he's confident his father will never let her live after this. With that, he loses his life on the spot right at that moment. Dion walks into the scene only to be devastated when she sees that Che-gun is done for. But before she can even process the loss, she's whipped across her back by none other than Mama. That one brutal blow was enough to take her down for the count. Chuck Buck perks up in happiness when she notices her mother. Even the husband looks relieved. But their faces both fall when they see Hira charging at Mama at full speed. Monster Mama, equally confused, has no idea who this woman is, but she quickly takes her stance, ready to deal with the immediate threat before things can spiral into a full-on bloodbath. Gombold quickly grabs Hira by both her hands. He firmly tells her not to even dream about touching his wife while Hira tries to break free from the big guy's grip. Mama is quite surprised to see her husband here. She feels annoyed as well as passionate as she asks him why he came, even though he was told to wait outside. But the big guy makes it clear that when his family is in danger, he just can't sit around twiddling his thumbs. While the big guy struggles to keep Hira in check, Chuck-bok runs toward her mother with her tiny feet. She reminds her mother that she tried her best to run away from the monster just like she had told her seeing her child. Like that brings tears to Monster Mama's eyes, and they quickly share a passionate hug which literally lights up the entire scene with wholesomeness. Even the big man can't keep his emotions hidden and nearly gets on the brink of tears, which leaves Hira a little creeped out while the hugs are being exchanged. Hira notices Chuck-bok's mutated finger, which literally pisses her off beyond belief. She goes into a full-blown tirade, berating the parents for not taking care of their child. She believes that their carelessness has resulted in something truly terrible. Not only that, they didn't even notice a change in their daughter, which just pisses her off even more just as she's saying all these harsh things. To Monster Mama, Gumdell chimes in because he can't stand anyone shit-talking to his wife. He lets Hira know that it was all his fault from the beginning, so she shouldn't be taking it out on his wife, but Mama quickly silences her husband. Once again, she uses him as her translator and conveys her utmost gratitude to Hira for saving her life. She further admits that everything that happened to her daughter is her fault. After they collect supplies here, they will head to Hope Village for her treatment. She also promises Hira a well-deserved reward for the kindness she's shown in the future. Finally, she asks Hira's name. Hira responds right away and further claims that she's a friend of Chuck-bok. Of course, a creepy silence fell over both parents because this lady seems way too old to be a friend of their daughter. Mama quickly turns to the little girl and asks her if this is true, to which the little one eagerly responds positively. The big guy is quite bewildered to hear this, and questions the little one about how she could keep something like this a secret. The girl quickly apologizes, explaining that Hira had told her not to tell anyone. But she vouches for Hira, insisting she's not a bad person and is in fact really nice to her. Her parents cut her off, and before they can start scolding the daughter for all the shit she had been pulling up secretly, Hiram steps in and silences them. She admits it's her fault since she was the one who asked Chuck-bok to keep it a secret. But since nothing bad had happened to Chuck-bok, there is nothing to worry about. Regardless, she gets back to the business at hand and advises them to focus on finding supplies instead of wasting time with this chit-chat. With that, she begins to walk out, and the little girl quickly follows her from behind. Mama reflects silently on the fact that it was Hira who saved her from danger by taking down that monster back then. Once again, she turns to her husband and as usual uses him as her translator. She stops Hira to ask a question. It's actually a question about her identity. Who exactly is Hira? Hira doesn't respond immediately. When she does, she simply says she's just Chuck-bok's friend, nothing more, without giving them time to linger on the matter. She tells them to get moving because there's no time to waste. As they walk away, we catch a glimpse of Dion, and it looks like she is still alive. Anyhow, our party makes their way forward, cutting down zombies left and right. Eventually, they reach a warehouse that's apparently full of supplies. Chuck-bok and her father eagerly open one of the boxes, and their eyes light up when they see what's inside. It's actually a stash of snacks, enough to make anyone's day. The father quickly throws all of the delicious snacks into his backpack, confident that this haul will be enough to pay for Chuck-bok's treatment. Meanwhile, Monster Mama stands silently in the background. Her mind is still fixated on Hira's identity. Mama knows that Hira is not a regular person given how good she is at battling. Mama can't deny the fact that Chuck-bok is still alive because of her, yet there's something else, something strange and uncanny about Hira that Mama can't quite figure out. The way Hira carries herself, the way she fights, even her calm demeanor. It all feels suspicious. But no matter how hard she tries, Mama just can't put her finger on it. Anyway, after picking up a bunch of supplies, they continue their journey. Chuck-bok is enjoying a piggyback ride on her father's back. Suddenly, Monster Mama senses something unusual deeper in the tunnel and slams on the brakes immediately. Out of nowhere, two giant hands emerge, forcing everyone to start running in the opposite direction. But whatever that thing is, it's incredibly fast and they can't outrun it. To make matters worse, a group of monsters stands right in front of the hallway, blocking their way. However, luck is on their side, because these monsters are just as terrified of what's chasing them as the group is, so they turn tail and begin running for their lives. As they sprint down the tunnel, they spot a fork ahead, but they're not sure which direction to take. Just then, the massive hand zips past the big guy's right shoulder. and it quickly blocks off the path to the right. Seeing this, it doesn't take them long to realize that the dungeon master is trying to toy with them. With no choice left, they turn to the left. And Gandalf is confident that the exit is just ahead of them. However, the massive hand continues to chase them down, and they finally make it out alive, but the area they've entered is packed with monsters. And to make things worse, it's a dead end. Now it makes sense why the dungeon master blocked the path to the right. Both of the ladies take their stances in order to take down the danger ahead. The creature in front of them is not only incredibly creepy, but also seems much more powerful compared to the usual zombies. The fact that this monster has yellow eyes makes it even more of a threat. Basically, yellow eyes means that the monster have consciousness and can act at his own will. The scene then transitions back to the past, where we see the body of the alien-like monster Dian called Father. It seems that he has finally taken over the body of the dungeon master. He has already started to like the nutrients it provides. And it looks like he won't need to find another body for a while. As he walks, he thinks about Dian and the hooded monster, wondering where they are now. When he spots a tentacle of Dian, he follows the trail, and soon discovers both the hooded bastard and Dian are down for the count. Dian, however, is still alive though gravely wounded. He approaches her and asks her, "Who did this to you?" For a moment Dian thinks she is looking at the dungeon master himself, but her father quickly clarifies, and just tells her to explain who did this to her. Dian quickly replies that it was a monster with yellow eyes. The same as her father's. Back in the present, the mama is sweating to see a yellow-eyed monster. Seeing her intense reaction, Gumdel asks if she knows this monster, to which she replies with a no. As far as Mama remembers, she's sure this monster couldn't speak before. But the only thing that has changed about it is the eye embedded in its chest. The monster, on the other hand, quickly grows disgusting giant limbs beneath its feet. Although Mama doesn't know anything about this monster, this yellow-eyed bastard seems to know about her, and he wants her to return the body she stole from him. Hearing this, Gombold asks his wife if she took anything from the monster. Of course, Mama has no clue what the hell this piece of crap is talking about. The monster, however, isn't surprised that Mama doesn't recognize him in this new form. But it doesn't really matter if she remembers or not, because he plans to kill her and take the body back. Right then, Hera steps forward and tells the big guy to just keep Chuckbox safe. She further tells him not to interfere, as she'll handle this no matter what. But before Hera can step forward any further, Mama stops her, saying she plans to take on this monster. She's not sure if she can kill it, but at least she can try to stop it. To do that, she'll have to go through extreme pain while using her trump card, but she has no choice with that. She starts to grow her fangs, and they begin to turn red. Not only that, but she also grows another sharp needle out of her tentacle, which is also completely red. After all that pushing, she's utterly exhausted, but she's sure she has to hold it in. Gumball's jaw drops when he sees her using her trump card in a fight. Seems like this is serious shit if even her husband is freaking out anyhow. Mama then quickly launches herself full throttle to stop the monster. Meanwhile, more and more monsters soon start to swarm the place. So Hera decides to take these critters while Mama is busy dealing with the big boss. That one-eyed bastard is just fascinated by the red needles Mama has. And that's one of the reasons he wanted to take her body. He quickly unclenches his giant hands, but Mama doesn't hesitate and just cuts through them like they're nothing. The yellow-eyed bastard's eyes turn black, as he gets angrier, seeing that he's gone through so much to get this body. But she destroyed his hands like they were nothing. Now he's unable to use them, since both of his hands have become necrotized. Mama continues her dash toward the ugly one-eyed bastard, and just before she can land a hit, the monster uses its tongue to grab her by the feet, causing her to freeze just inches away from her target. It turns out this one-eyed bastard intentionally let Mama get close, so he is feeling quite thrilled that Mama fell for his farce. Mama quickly tries to retaliate with her own tentacle, but the bastard hoists her further up in the air and then throws her crashing to the ground. The crash is brutal, and the sight leaves poor Chuck Bach in utter panic. The monster, on the other hand, keeps pounding the hell out of her. At one point it gets too much for Chuck Bach to watch, so she dashes full throttle to save her mother. The yellow light in Mama's eyes quickly fades with the brutal impact, and she drifts into unconsciousness. There she finds herself just running with no direction. The tentacles on her back suddenly grow, and she sweats as she feels this strange sensation in her bones. She tries her best to get rid of it, but fails miserably. However, she eventually succeeds in removing the tentacles from her back. But her fear only grows when she notices this parasite she just separated is now walking toward her and quickly lunges at her. She braces herself for the worst, but she soon snaps out of the nightmare when she hears her little one calling to her. And the yellow light in her eyes comes back. Chuckbuck is literally standing in the middle between her mother and the monster. With her mutated finger pointed at the monster, she starts to berate this piece of shit. The monster mother, on the other hand, trembles as she desperately tells her little girl to just run away. Meanwhile, Hira and Gamdal are already busy with other monsters, so they can't do much other than watch in anxiety. Mama gathers her courage to protect her little one even though she's not even in a position to move an inch. That yellow-eyed bastard, on the other hand, looms over the little one. He gets quite curious as he sees Chuckbuck and asks her if she's human or perhaps a monster, because as far as he can see, her finger is mutated and he is dying to know how she got a part of his body. Well, I'm not sure what he means by that. But let's wait and see what this one-eyed monster is making a fuss about with his body and all that. The little one just snaps at this bastard, telling him to leave her mother alone now that the one-eyed bastard is curious about such a rare specimen like Chuckbuck. He decides to take her along with her mother and rip them apart to check them out from the inside. Hira is absolutely boggled to hear this as the monster's giant hand looms over them. The monster mom tries to tell her kid to just run away, but the little one stubbornly sticks to her guns, even though she's absolutely terrified because she wants to protect her mother at all costs. Seeing how her little girl is trying her best not to give up, this also ignites a fire in the mother. She's going to protect her family at all costs, so she hugs her little one as tightly as possible. The monster's hand is almost upon them, and in the next moment it slams directly onto them, while both Hira and Gamdal are in absolute awe. That yellow-eyed bastard just snickers after finally getting his payback, but well, we all know it's not that easy to take Mama down. She retaliates so fast that the yellow-eyed bastard can't even tell where all these hits are coming from. All we can see is the monster splattering blood from all over its body with each hit. After that barrage of attacks, Mama finally makes a safe distance. The monster is literally in shambles, its entire body wrecked, and all of the flesh it had started to melt like butter. Even Gamdal has no clue what kind of power this is, because he's never seen anything like this before in his life. It looks like Mama has gone through some sort of awakening, and now she has those two whips embedded with red needles. Meanwhile, in some quiet corner of the place, we see all the terrified monsters running for their lives. They're totally panicked, because that brat we saw before is following them from behind, demanding that they play with him, but it looks like no one's willing to play with this violent brat who has no regard for anyone. Meanwhile, the yellow-eyed bastard is losing his shit after getting wrecked so hard. It was his new precious body that he just acquired, and he's not liking the fact that it's already been ruined. Previously, he claimed he was going easy on them, but now that he's pissed, he won't be holding back anymore. With that, he launches his giant hands at our party once again, but surprisingly enough, he was not targeting our party at all. The hands just grab a bunch of nearby monsters and start gobbling them up like they're the most delicious food ever. None of them have any clue what's happening, or what this monster is trying to achieve by doing this, but when we look at the monster, it looks like he's gotten even stronger and regenerated his body after gobbling up all the nearby monsters. Now he's grown humongous in size. Gamdal is just left sweating all over his body when he sees this giant monster in front of him. Mama quickly tells Gamdal to grab the girl as she plans to take on this monster, but Gundal doesn't seem to vibe with her idea. He's more thinking about running out of here alive, but Mama quickly puts reassuring hands over him in order to calm him down, but the big guy feels really pathetic about himself. To think that he's such a weak husband just pisses him off, but he promises to protect Chuckbuck with his life. Before she heads off, the big guy and the little one both cheer her on to just kick the monsters, but Mama flashes a smile and walks toward the monster, who instantly tries to crush her under its giant hand. The monster finds it ridiculous that Mama is trying to protect these pathetic humans she calls family. He reminds her that he also has a family where his kids follow all of his commands as an act of repayment for all the trouble he went through to raise them. This, he believes, is what a true family is all about, but Mama isn't backing down. She quickly appears right behind the one-eyed bastard and lets him know that this isn't what family is supposed to be like. To her, it sounds like he's just been treating them like his personal slaves. Without wasting a second, she unleashes her red needles at the bastard, but the yellow-eyed monster conjures a shield of flesh just in time to block the direct hit. The needle burns away the flesh on impact, but it doesn't quite get through the monster, then swings his massive hand, but as soon as it connects with Mama, she sinks her fangs deep into his hand. The flesh around her bite quickly starts to burn away. And she continues to pierce the monster's hand wherever she can. At one point the monster grabs her foot with his fleshy hand and clenches it into a fist, trying to make her immobile. The monster is furious to see that she has ruined his one arm, so he decides to make her pay. He tightens his grip, determined to crush her bones and organs. As the pressure intensifies, the pain becomes unbearable for poor Mama, and she can feel herself losing consciousness. Suddenly the monster tumbles to its knees, and thankfully it loses its grip on Mama. Turns out his leg has been cleanly cut off. And the one responsible for the deed is none other than Hira. She quickly tells Mama to run while she buys them some time. But we all know that's not going to happen. Mama gets back up and launches herself at the monster, and Hira follows suit, both of them attacking with precision and skill. Gombold is in total awe watching these two equally skilled fighters take on the monster with such finesse. At this point he has no doubt that victory is in the bag, but just when things couldn't get any stranger, a familiar voice of that annoying kid who just wants to play echoes in the background. This leaves Chuckbox shocked, because this is the same unmistakable voice of that brat who took her candies. Meanwhile Mama is giving it her all in the fight to protect her daughter. Hira, on the other hand, is torn between whether she should keep fighting or take Chuck back and get out of there. She knows that abandoning the two might lead to their deaths, but it could also give her a chance to protect Chuck Buck. Despite her internal conflict, Hira is absolutely determined to take down that piece of trash. And Mama shares the same thought about this bastard. Both of them are thinking the same thing. They're going to shred this monster to pieces and get everyone out of here together, but the monster begins to transform into its absolute form, growing even bigger and more jacked. After this transformation, the yellow-eyed bastard is convinced that they're all about to meet a meaningless death at his hands, and he's absolutely certain of it. Now let's focus on that brat for a moment. He's equally surprised to see Chuck Buck there. Gumball picks up on a strange smell coming from the monster, while Chuck Buck reminds her father that the monster can stretch out its arms and hit her with them. Gumball looks a bit unsettled, noticing how furious this little brat is. And why wouldn't he be angry after all? He was just beaten up by our girl not long ago. Like some helpless kid, our little girl, just as annoyed and unpleased to see him, sticks her tongue out to tease the brat. This sends the brat into a rage, and he starts running toward her, but Gombold quickly scoops up his daughter and tries to shoo the kid away. To his surprise, the brat stops in his tracks, and he even starts to stagger back. Gumball is taken aback to see such a sight. To think that this monster is actually staggering backward from just a simple gesture of his leg, it makes him wonder if this brat is actually weak. After all, but something doesn't add up. If the brat were weak, he would have just run away like the others. So Gundal can't figure out why this kid even came here. Suddenly the brat's eyes land on the commotion nearby, and he is left in awe when he sees his mother. As we already know, he's the child of the dungeon master. Even Gomdal can sense the shift in the brat's mood. Something has changed, and it's not looking good. Meanwhile, in the thick of the battle, as the dust begins to settle, it becomes clear that Hira has lost miserably. She's down, unable to continue. And Mama is barely holding on, having pushed herself to the brink. The one-eyed bastard grabs Mama. He sneers at her, letting her know that no matter what sacrifices she's made for her family, or how much hidden power she might have, none of it matters. He will make sure she feels the depths of despair before the end. He quickly opens his filthy mouth, ready to chomp down on Mama, but before he can, everyone's attention is drawn to Gumball, who's hoisting the brat up in his hand with his volume cranked up to high. Gombold threatens the monster, declaring that if he doesn't let go of his wife, the kid will be in danger. The yellow-eyed monster recalls this monster as the dungeon master's child, but can't understand what Gumball is trying to accomplish with this move. Gumball makes his intentions explicit, his voice firm, as he declares that he's holding the kid hostage. If the creepy bastard wants his son to survive, he better release his wife now. But the monster scoffs, dismissing Gomdal's threat as futile. After all, he isn't the dungeon master, so why would he care about that brat? But this is where the one-eyed bastard proves to be wrong. Suddenly his finger moves on its own as the brat continues to scream. The dungeon master begins to take control of her own body, and the one-eyed monster can feel himself losing control over her. The brat and the dungeon master lock eyes, and in that moment, both of their minds flash back to the past. The mother remembers all the love she had given to her child. The memories overwhelm her, and tears begin to spill from her eyes. This is something this yellow-eyed bastard finds unfathomable. How could he lose control of this body just because of this trivial emotion? The entire body begins to resist the one-eyed bastard. And he can tell that this body is being agitated by that child eventually. The hand holding Mama loses its grip and she starts to fall. The one-eyed bastard, using all his willpower, takes control of the hand and tries to retaliate with the sharp claws he's got, but before he can strike, his hand is brutally hit by an axe launched by Hira. This gives Mama enough time to retaliate and she delivers a brutal cut across the bastard's body, which is just enough to render this body useless. Gumdal is fascinated to see his wife finally pulling off the impossible. And Hira is equally amazed. All the while our little one is having the time of her life watching her mother win against the monster. But Mama knows this isn't the end. She decides to strike again, and this time her target is this yellow-eyed parasite. However, the parasite quickly retaliates and delivers a nasty cut right into Mama's hand. But that's not enough to stop Mama. She retaliates once again, her poisonous claws aimed at finishing off the bastard. Just as her claws are about to strike out, pops De Jong, who quickly guards her father just in time. Mama, caught completely off guard, hadn't expected this bitch to still be alive. But before she can react, a searing pain courses through her tentacles. It's clear that she's overexerted herself. The strain becomes too much and she begins to collapse helplessly. Just when victory was within her grasp, she was so close to taking down her enemy. But she falters at the very end. As she falls, the lifeless body of the dungeon master also begins to topple, especially since there is no host to keep it standing. Both bodies hit the ground simultaneously. Later, as the dust settles, Gundal and his daughter make their way to find Mama. To their surprise, their giga-chat of a lady is standing right in front of them. Mama is standing staring at the lifeless body of the dungeon master. She's pissed that she missed the parasite, but at the same time she's relieved that the fight is finally over. However, we soon realize that the dungeon master hasn't actually died yet. It's still alive, though clearly exhausted. Seeing this, Mama decides to take the opportunity to get rid of the dungeon master for good, and it will make it easier to get the required supplies from this place. She inches her menacing claws closer to render the dungeon master's body useless, but just as she's about to strike, she's stopped by the dungeon master's brat, who's in tears seeing his mom lying helpless and almost lifeless on the ground. The mother and child are trying desperately to communicate with each other, their voices filled with pain and love, all the while everyone else watches. This heart-wrenching scene of a mother and child reconnecting. The child burst into uncontrollable tears, crying out that he doesn't want his mother to die. Eventually, Mama hesitates and gives up because no one understands the bond between a mother and her children more than she does. But just as we start to think she's letting them go, Mama suddenly pierces the dungeon master with her poisonous needle, leaving the brat absolutely devastated and bawling his eyes out. The poor thing could do nothing but bang his fists against Mama. Even Chukba looks unsettled by this heart-wrenching scene. But his father tries to reassure him that there's nothing to worry about because Mommy is trying to help. As reassuring as it is, Gundal is absolutely right. She was indeed trying to help that unconscious mother. After that injection Mama gave her, the dungeon master wakes up. And the first thing she does is call her son over. The son goes into full tear mode, extending his hands and rushing to hug his mother with all the passion he has. Mama's heart warms up seeing this. She acknowledges that, although this woman is a terrifying monster, she's not so different from herself. Just a lady who loves her child just like anyone else. Her own daughter then calls out to her, and when she turns, Chuck Buck gives her a passionate hug right away. Now that everyone is safe, the daughter decides to go back home safely. With that, they begin to quietly leave the place while Chuck Buck makes sure to wave her last goodbyes to the brat. And the brat reciprocates her gesture accordingly. Later, we see Dion walking alongside her father. She hesitantly asks why he didn't absorb the dungeon master, to which her father reassures her that he had already drained enough nutrients from others. His eyes are now set on Mama and our little girl. All he needs is to get his body back, and then he'll be complete, no longer depending on absorbing power from others. He then orders her to command all the siblings of the cannibal tribe to bring him the mother and daughter. Later we find ourselves in the desolate streets roamed by monsters, and our party is doing their best to navigate through these creatures quietly. Since Hira seems injured, she's actually dripping blood from her body. The monsters roaming the streets quickly catch on to the scent and they all get absolutely excited, but before things can escalate they finally make their way into their apartment and they're all relieved to be back home. After that crazy journey, Mama is glad that everyone is fine, but Gamdal points out that Hira is missing in action. While they're all calling out to her, we notice that Hira has already gone unconscious in the apartment's corridor. Later she opens her eyes and the first thing she sees is the scared face of Chuck Buck. The poor girl is just so concerned about Hira. She's so upset that she doesn't realize she's actually causing Hira more pain by pushing her. Hira finally gets up and wow, her body is absolutely jacked. She doesn't look like a woman at all except for the fact that she's got some big assets. Right then we also spot Mama peeking from the door while Gamdal is glad that Hira has woken up and invites her to the food. Since it's ready, the noodles look delicious and the big guy is literally getting teary-eyed while slurping that deliciousness down. He can't remember the last time he had such goodness. Meanwhile, poor Mama just sits quietly, albeit a bit annoyed. Probably because everyone can enjoy food, but she can't. Before Hira proceeds to eat, she notices that the outfit she's wearing isn't hers. Chuck Buck quickly responds that they washed her clothes and this belongs to her mother. Of course, Hira finds the clothes a bit childish. Meanwhile, Gamdal just can't take his eyes off her jacked-up muscles. Because he didn't notice them at all under her jacket and the amount of injuries she has, he can tell she's definitely not an ordinary person. I guess it's not surprising to him anymore why she was able to fight like a seasoned fighter back then. As Chuck Buck clings to Hira, Hira can't help but notice Chuck Buck's mutated finger. And her nail has gotten shorter. But she doesn't say anything and continues with her meal. The girl also dashes away from the place to play around, and once she's out of sight, Hira points out that her fingernail has gotten shorter, so she's quite curious to know if they clipped her nail. Gamdal quickly clarifies that it's been like this since yesterday, and they'll figure out what's going on when they get to the village. However, he is sure that the cannibal tribe might be after his wife and daughter on their way to the village, so even if they make it there, he's not sure they'll be safe. That's why he's about to ask Hira for a favor. He basically wants her to come with them to the Hope Village. Of course, he doesn't forget to remind her that she'll be compensated with the best of their abilities. And all they want in return is for her to keep him and Chuck Buck safe until they return from the Hope Village. With a big smile, he offers her the next serving. Since she's already done with the first one, she promptly grabs it all while agreeing to go with them. But surprisingly enough, she was just messing with him by agreeing, since he was expecting her to. She makes it clear that just because she helped them in the dungeon doesn't make them comrades. So they better not flatter themselves. She certainly doesn't care if they get killed or not, she just won't help them. She promises to go with them. But she'll only protect Chuck Buck as usual, the rest they'll have to take care of themselves. Finally, the big guy agrees to take care of himself. His wife quickly objects and asks him how he's going to handle everything alone. The big guy quickly reassures her, saying he has no problem taking care of himself. So she shouldn't worry. Mama then turns her attention to Hira. She is clearly annoyed by the stubbornness this lady is showing. She has no idea why Hira is so obsessed with her daughter. As if Chuck Buck is her own right. At that moment, an angry Chuck Buck storms in, totally pissed that no one came to find her. Hira quickly agrees to play with her. And in an instant, the little one's mood shifts from angry to happy. But just as things seem to settle, her mother grabs her and tries to push her to the side, but Hira is just as stubborn. She grabs the little one by the other hand and pulls her in the opposite direction, trying to get her on her side. The rivalry between the two ladies is clear. But this healthy competition is actually good for Chuck Buck, because it means there are two women who are determined to protect her at all costs, while both women shoot literal daggers with their sharp gazes. The poor father just continues slurping down his noodles. He is just relieved that Hira is tagging along with them now. All he needs is a good vehicle to accommodate. For people, the next scene transitions to a group of bullies chasing down a girl with yellow hair. She notices a room in front of her and quickly rushes inside, but soon realizes that she's entered a restroom and now there are no other paths for her to run. The thugs chasing her quickly get inside, and at this moment she finds herself in a nightmare situation with no way to escape. But before we find out what happens to her, the scene transitions back to our party. They're apparently checking each and every vehicle one by one. But they haven't found a single car that's functional, even though they've already tried about 20 of them. Gambold has no clue how to proceed in this situation. But right then Hira tells him to just keep moving. And she promptly begins to walk. The big guy reminds her that it's dangerous to go out like this, especially since she hasn't fully healed yet. But the lady makes it clear that she won't sit back just to do nothing. Seems like Gumball can't really argue with her, or can he anyway? He gives up on trying to change her mind and tells her to just follow his lead. But warns her to stay behind him. Hira quickly walks up to him and kicks him in the leg, causing him to wince in pain. With her point proven, she simply tells him to just stick at the back. As they walk, Gumball can literally still feel the pain in his leg, although he's grateful for her help given how brutal she is. He's starting to think he might get killed by her before anything else happens. Meanwhile, the mother and daughter are having the time of their lives in their apartment, playing together as they wait for Gumball to return with a vehicle. As they continue walking, they suddenly hear screams coming from the girl we saw earlier. The sounds seem to be coming from an apartment building nearby. Gumball quickly looks in the direction of the screams, but Hira angrily yanks him back and demands to know if he's forgetting their main goal. She's clearly annoyed, questioning why this guy is thinking about helping someone else when he's barely able to handle himself. With a final cold glare, she tells him to focus on Chuck Buck. Otherwise, she is going to head her own way. As angry as she might be, the big guy musters up the courage to raise his point. All she needs to do is just hear him out, but Hira is literally going berserk. As she could hardly keep her anger in check. Meanwhile, the thugs have already tied the poor girl up with rope. At first, they consider clapping her cheeks. But then one of the wiser ones decides to keep her untouched. She might be a good bargain to get some food in exchange for her, but one of them raises a concern. What if the village doesn't want her to that? One of the creepy bastards decides to stick with the original plan. They'll clap her and abandon her somewhere. And honestly, this jerk is just hoping the village just refuses to take her as payment so he can keep her for himself. But it looks like their plan isn't going to be as smooth as they think, especially since Gumball has crashed the party already and has immobilized two of those filthy thugs. He then delivers a solid kick to the one who was thinking about having fun with the innocent girl. The other bastards start running as fast as they can to save their lives, but little do they know the one running the fastest gets rocked with a punch first. And of course it's Hira who delivered it. She doesn't shy away when she orders them to cough up all the supplies. But these clowns make the grave mistake of not following her command. And they quickly charge at her, only to get their faces clapped hard afterward. The girl quickly expresses her gratitude, almost on the brink of tears. She introduces herself as Young Hee. The big guy reciprocates with the same gesture and introduces himself and Hira as well. He then gets back to business, reminding her that he overheard the conversation and learned she's from Hope Village. The girl agrees right away, and the big guy perks up with happiness, feeling that his decision to rescue her was the right one all along. Now that they've saved someone from the village, it'll be even easier to get Chuck back treated, so they mention they have some business in Hope Village. Young-hee gets excited at the thought that they're going to Hope Village and that strong people like them are always welcome in her village. She goes on to explain that she came out for the first time to promote their village, but she never expected to meet such reliable people. She's sure their principal and instructor will love to have them in the village. The mention of the principal and instructor catches Gumball off guard, and right at that moment a creepy bastard tries to attempt a sneak attack. But his effort is rendered futile when Hira reacts in an instant, stopping the upcoming onslaught right away. He seems pissed, like really pissed. He seems to have mistaken our duo for enemies. So he threatens them to hand over Young-hee right away, but the guy is quickly humbled when Young-hee herself tells him to stop and clarifies that they are her saviors, not enemies. She apologizes for not following him closely behind, which led to this misunderstanding. The big guy's straight and serious face softens into a smile. He's just relieved that she's safe, and that's all that matters to him. He then quickly apologizes to the duo as well. Gumball is a little bewildered, thinking that this is the same guy who threatened them with that menacing look, but now he's acting all chummy. That's when Gumball notices something strange. The girl is shaking uncontrollably while she's addressing her instructor. She's all sweaty and trembling like a leaf as she continues to apologize. The creepy guy puts his big hand on her tiny shoulder, and with a creepy smile on his face, he reassures her again, warning her to stay close to him next time. The bastard just keeps squeezing her shoulder, continuing to warn her. At one point, the girl reluctantly says that it's hurting her, but she soon gets relief from the pain when Gumball steps in and grabs this bastard's filthy hand. Both guys lock eyes, shooting deadly daggers with their sheer intensity. Seeing how this new bastard is acting, it's clear that things are about to escalate quickly. Hira is practically ready with 911 dialed in her mind, prepared to take this creep head on, but we all know violence isn't always the answer, so our big guy decides to play it safe. Instead of escalating the situation, he puts on a big smile, extends his hand for a handshake. And suddenly the killing intent-filled atmosphere shifts into something that looks like a big bro's happy reunion. Gumball smoothly starts buttering up. He praises Yang He, saying he's heard a lot about Hope Village and was blown away by her passionate speech. He can't even describe in words how fantastic of a job she did promoting the village. Not only that, but she also spoke highly of her amazing instructor. Young He, knowing full well that Gamdal is exaggerating like crazy, decides to play along. When her instructor turns to her and asks if this is true, she quickly flashes a peace sign and nods, confirming that the big guy is indeed telling the truth. For a moment this jacked-up shithead gives her a cold glare, but he soon reciprocates Gambal's smile and promptly introduces himself as Sumin Bayek, an instructor at Hope Village. Now that Gamdal has full control of the conversation, he quickly asks Beck if it would be possible for his family to visit Hope Village. Beck is surprised to hear the mention of family, so he promptly inquires if there are others beside him. To which Gamdal quickly clarifies that he has a wife who is right behind him and a daughter as well. Since his daughter is sick, he wants her to get treated in the village. As soon as Hira hears this bastard calling her his wife, she starts giving him those death glares. Gamdal is pretty darn sure he's as good as dead if he keeps pushing it. Beck, on the other hand, responds that they indeed have a doctor in Hope Village, and he's confident that the doctor can take a look at her, but the problem is that one will have to cough up an entrance fee. Of course, Gumball has already taken care of that. After all, that payment was the only reason they had to go through that life or death situation in the dungeon. Bike decides to leave, as he's eager to deliver this news to the village. First, he promises to meet again tomorrow in front of this building. With that, he walks off, and before leaving Young, he suddenly stops and doesn't forget to pay her respects to Gamdal. Anyhow, this hunt has proven to be quite successful for Gamdal and Hira. As they're one step closer to Chuckbox treatment, he happily turns toward her. But the lady quickly delivers a devastating kick to his leg, causing him to fall and wince in pain. Of course, he instinctively calls her a bitch after taking that painful kick, but she just tells him to consider it a little love from his wife as they go back and forth. We transition to Instructor Beck and Yangi walking down a quiet corridor. Beck hasn't gotten over the fact that Gamdal's grip was so strong. He considers himself one of the strongest people, but after meeting Gundal in person, he can tell that guy is on a whole other level. And his wife is no weakling either. He's quite impressed with how she turned in a split second and dodged that attack. Beck grins sinisterly as he thinks about how both are talents that their village needs. He mustn't lose them. And he's pretty sure the village head will be thrilled to meet these two. He is so excited that he can barely wait for the next day to arrive. The next day arrives, and the first thing we see is the annoyed face of Hira, who is frustrated to see that this gorilla hasn't finished packing yet. Meanwhile, the monster mom makes sure to wrap her little girl's finger under the bandages, ensuring it stays covered and isn't exposed. The mother desperately wants to go with them on their journey, but she can't since she's a monster. She tries to convince her daughter about it, and eventually she succeeds in getting Chuckbox permission to tag along. But Gumdell quickly objects to this idea, leaving the monster mom feeling sad once again. Even Gumball feels down seeing her upset. So he tries to reassure her, promising that they'll be back before she knows it, and all she has to do is wait a little while his wife asks him to promise that he will come back. And without a second thought, the big guy promises right away, giving her a kiss on the head as a bonus. For a moment, the mom feels sad about her situation. If only she were a normal person, she could have gone anywhere with her family, while she is thinking that both father and daughter say their final goodbyes. And even Hira, usually as stern as a mule, smiles at her, and with that, they leave. Seeing them leave makes her long for the day when she's a normal person happily venturing around with her family. But since she isn't, she's left behind, stuck in this dimly lit apartment. But she acknowledges that she also has her own role to perform. So she acts quickly. We don't know exactly what she's trying to do, but let's hope we'll find out soon. Meanwhile, our trio has finally boarded the van that Instructor Bayek has brought. Gumdall inquires if the doctor is actually skilled, to which Beck quickly vouches for him, claiming that he's called one of the necessary people in their village for a reason. Still, Gumdall isn't entirely sure how things will turn out. But he's hoping it will work out well for his little one. Back at the apartment, the monster mom gets fully naked and concentrates. She can literally feel the creature's tentacle inside her body. It looks like this tentacle belongs to the leader of the cannibal tribe. Now it makes sense why he was telling her that he wanted his body back. On the other hand, leader of the cannibal tribe quickly concentrates and figures out the location of our mom. Now that he knows where she is, he tells his cannibal group members to be prepared, with Dion leading the charge. Meanwhile, our party has arrived at Hope Village. Once they enter the vicinity of the building, Beck announces to everyone that when they get off they should leave their luggage in the car, and they'll get it back later, although they've arrived in the village. Gamdal doesn't want to let his guard down and signals to Hira that they should act together. Of course, the lady just gives him an annoyed look at seeing him bossing her around. Gamdal then turns to his girl and asks if she remembers what he had told her, to which she goes silent for a moment. But she quickly responds that she remembers. She quickly starts the act and immediately starts addressing Hira as her mommy, and Hira has no choice but to play along. Though she feels a little embarrassed, but nonetheless she continues to call her sweetheart in order to make the act convincing. Though Gandalf can clearly see through how hard she's trying to act. It's still pretty terrible. The car finally comes to a stop, and as soon as the van's back door opens, a crowd of people is already gathered to greet the group. Gumball looks bewildered by the number of people and turns to the instructor for an explanation. The instructor reassures him that this is just a tradition in the village, as the locals are naturally curious about visitors. There's nothing to worry about since the crowd is completely harmless. Even with this reassurance, Gamdal still feels uneasy while Hira looks visibly annoyed. The head of the village steps forward to greet the group. He introduces himself as Hyung-Jun Kim, the person in charge, and expresses his happiness to see everyone. Later, as the villagers begin unloading the van, one of the villagers even struggles to carry a bag that Gamdal typically handles with ease. A moment that doesn't go unnoticed. The village seems lively, and even Gamdal can't ignore the homely atmosphere that surrounds the place. The old man explains that this is just everyday life for their village. He mentions how glad he is that the visitors feel at home here, something he has missed deeply since the apocalypse began. This village, he says, is a product of the earnest hopes and hard work of its people over the last 5 years. In the beginning, things were much harder. Everyone was trying to survive. So the conflicts were ordinary things. It wasn't easy to manage at first, but over time the villagers became inseparable members of what he now considers his family. Hira, however, can't shake the feeling that something about this man seems suspicious. The old man then quickly shifts the conversation to Chuck Buck and her treatment after walking a short distance. He points to a room marked hospital. The old man admits that it looks a bit shabby from the outside, but assures them that the doctor inside is nothing short of a magician. Gambold expresses his gratitude for the help. But as soon as the old man is out of earshot, he quietly shares his own doubts to him. Everything here seems off. Hira too can feel the suspiciousness lingering in the air. The first thing that stands out is the lack of security. The entrance is completely unguarded, and there are no lights to keep the monsters away at night. Moreover, no one in the village appears to be armed. It's a place with virtually no defenses, which only makes it all the more suspicious. For now, Hira decides to focus on Chuck Buck's treatment. So they promptly enter this dark place, which is supposed to be a hospital. As they descend, the path grows darker with every step until they find themselves in a pitch-black ward. It's hard to believe someone thought it was a good idea to build a hospital in the basement. While walking around, Chuck Buck suddenly stumbles over something on the floor and tumbles forward as she withers in pain. She notices that what she tripped over isn't just some random object. Her eyes catch a faint red glow, and in that instant her survival instincts kick in. Her bandaged index finger begins to throb, and her nail rapidly elongates into a sharp weapon. Acting on pure instinct, she lashes out and pinches this hospital ghost with her sharp nail. Before we can figure out who this ghost under the blanket is, the scene cuts away to a conversation happening outside. Apparently, Instructor Bayak is discussing our trio with the old man. It's revealed that the old man is putting them through a test, a prerequisite for participating in something called the Food Day event. Bake expresses concern, wondering what would happen if the group refuses to take part, even if they pass the test. The old man calmly states that if that happens, they can simply get rid of them and use their skin, which would suffice. He also instructs Bayak to be particularly kind to the child. Accompanying the couple, apparently their founder has taken a special interest in her. The scene cuts back to Chuck Block. Her scream catches the attention of Gundal and Hira. As well, the poor girl's hand is grabbed by the creepy sucker under the blanket. And he questions the little one, asking what in the hell she's doing. Right at that moment, Hira grabs the blanket sucker and pins him to the ground. With her dagger in hand, she demands that this bastard reveal his identity. As soon as she pulls the blanket away, we see this guy completely terrified out of his mind. After being threatened like that, he finally musters up the courage to say that he's a doctor. Hira isn't entirely convinced that this pathetic man is actually a doctor. But later Gumball can be seen bowing his head, apologizing for their misunderstanding. However, the doctor doesn't seem to know how to calm down and keeps berating the group for their negligence. Seeing how ridiculous this man looks sleeping with a childish pillow by his side, Gumball definitely wasn't expecting to encounter someone like him. The doctor, on the other hand, is pissed that they attacked him like this and messed up his pillow, so he demands that he and the little one apologize. Of course, we can tell that both ladies are pretty reluctant to comply with what this bastard is saying. But this piece of shit just gives them a contemptuous look, and while Hira isn't in a position to fight back, she swallows her pride and apologizes. Albeit reluctantly. Naturally, the forced apologies from the girls don't seem to satisfy the doctor, and he tells them to leave immediately. As he continues to shoo them out, his attention suddenly shifts to Chuck Block's finger. Something about it catches his interest, and he gets intrigued right away. A little later, he's seen carefully inspecting her finger. After a thorough examination, he finally admits that he has no idea what's going on with her. This, of course, infuriates Hira, and she grabs the guy by his coat, ready to slam him to the ground. Her sheer anger is enough to intimidate the doctor, and he quickly explains himself. He says that her symptoms are exceptionally rare, often appearing in people who are bitten by monsters or when monster blood gets into an open wound. However, he points out that she has no bite marks or visible scars on her body, and he's never encountered anything like this before. Fortunately, there's nothing wrong with her body right now. But the doctor can't say it will stay that way in the future, but for now they'll just have to see how things go while they stay in the village. Gombold then requests that the doctor keep his daughter's condition a secret from others. Normally, the doctor wouldn't keep something like this quiet. But since he's also interested in the condition, he agrees to keep it to himself. The little one places her tiny hand over her father's massive hand and asks him if he's worried because of her, or if the condition is really that bad. Her father reassures her, then decides to step outside for a bit to get some air and have some fun. While she plays around in the sand, the two of them just sit there. The big guy has no idea what to do in this situation since they haven't found any leads about her condition. They've been through so much just to get here, so he's not sure if telling the monster mama this bad news is a good idea. Just as the big guy continues to sink into despair, Hira stands up and tells him to stay beside his daughter. She reminds him that even if they're in the worst possible situation and there's no way out, he has to support his child so she doesn't fall. That's what parents are supposed to do for their children. This finally triggers something inside the big guy, and he quickly slaps himself in the face to snap out of it as he stands confidently. She asks him if he has any ideas, to which the big guy confidently responds that they will surely find their way if they start their digging. While the two are discussing among themselves, we notice Yong. He's standing right behind a pillar, looking anxious for some reason. To understand why she's here, we flash back a little to a moment earlier, where the village chief tells her to keep an eye on the family that arrived today. The chief wants to make sure there's no threat to the village, and since they're visiting the doctor's office now, she should find them there. If she notices any details, she's to report back immediately. So she followed them to the doctor's office, and she too learned about Chuck Block's mutated finger. In the present, she's standing there anxiously when suddenly someone taps her on the shoulder, freaking the hell out of her. When she turns around, she realizes it's her mother, who asks what she's doing here. Yankee makes up an excuse saying she was just taking a walk. But her mother sees right through the lie and directly questions her about why she's keeping an eye on this family. The mother suspects that the principal must have asked her daughter to do this, and since her hunch is right, the daughter remains silent. This causes the mother to lose her temper completely as she reminds her daughter yet again that she's told her many times not to blindly follow the village head. Finally, the daughter snaps back, telling her mother that everything she's doing, including going outside to promote the village, was her own decision. She firmly says that her mother should stop blaming the principal for everything. She reminds her mother that she's also a part of this village. And one day she'll be recognized as someone important. She's confident that just like her mother received a miracle from the principal, she will too. This enrages the mother even more, and she smacks her daughter over the head. She continues scolding her, reminding her that what she thinks of as a miracle is not actually what it looks like. After enduring enough of her mother's barrage of punches, the daughter finally breaks down and runs away. Before disappearing into the distance, she shouts back through her tears that all she wants is a goal in life. She pleads with her mother to let her pursue it, adding that if her father were here, he would have been proud of her. That remark pushes the mother over the edge. Enraged, she grabs some rocks and throws them at her daughter, furious at what she said. Eventually the girl runs off, leaving her hopeless mother behind, who just wants her daughter to listen to her. I gotta say, this village we thought was a peaceful place seems totally messed up, completely filled with psychos. Anyway, later that night Gamdal is absolutely bamboozled to be served such luxurious food. He literally never imagined he'd get to eat something this fancy. Both father and daughter can't help but think how much better it would have been if Monster Mama were here to enjoy it with them. We also catch sight of Hira, who seems annoyed at how carefree this jackass is being in a place like this. She reminds him that this village isn't a suitable place for Chuckbuck. And even the doctor has no clue about her symptoms. Hira, in her secret thoughts, even considers killing Monster Mama. If she turns out to be the cause of Chuckbuck's condition, suddenly their attention is grabbed by the ever-eager principal, who insists on sitting with them at the table after dinner. It's clear Chuckbuck ate way more than her tiny belly could handle. She looks like she's about to pop. Gumball marvels at how he never thought he'd get sausages in a place like this, to which the principal proudly explains that it's possible because they have ranches and farms nearby. When Gundal asks about the electricity situation, the principal claims they don't have enough generators, so they only use power when it's absolutely necessary. At some point, the principal steers the conversation toward Chuck. Boxfinger Gamdal responds by saying that the doctor mentioned needing more time to figure out how to cure her. After giving this thorough look at Chuck Boxfinger, he casually suggests taking a walk outside the village later tonight. Gamdal is not sure if walking in the middle of the night is a great idea, but the principal explains that they regularly go outside the village once a week to gather food because the village population is growing, and they need large amounts of supplies to sustain everyone. Still, Gumball can't help but question why it has to be at night, especially with monsters roaming around. That's when the principal calmly explains that this is precisely why they go out at night, before Hira and Gamdal get any wrong ideas. The old man quickly elaborates that the monsters are most active at night, which means they leave their dens and roam outside. While the monsters are distracted, it's safer for the villagers to enter their hideouts and gather food or supplies. Hira isn't sure if she should laugh at the old man's joke. She looks at him suspiciously and asks how the hell he plans to get through all those monsters outside without getting killed. This time she demands honest answers because she's had enough of this nonsense. The big guy quickly tries to apologize to the old man, explaining that she's a bit sensitive. But the principal doesn't seem bothered by her harsh tone, and insists that what he said wasn't a joke at all. The fuck, Gumball said in his mind, because he also thought the old man was just joking around. The asshole then smirks and is sure that they will believe him once he's going to show them the miracle of Food's Day. It's already dawn. And while Chuck Buck is playing around, Hira turns to Gumball and asks if he really believes what that crazy old man said. Gumball admits that he's not sure about anything. The old coot might just be full of lies. But there's also a chance that this could lead to a cure for Chuck Block. If what the old man said is true, then it's worth checking out. Hira makes it clear that she's out. Gamdal isn't surprised to hear this, especially since she isn't a parent. Well, Hira admits as much, claiming that's not something non-parents can truly understand. Still, she wishes him good luck and says she'll be waiting for good news. The big guy doesn't quite understand what her deal is, but he makes it clear that he'll do whatever it takes for Chuck Buck. When night finally falls, Gamdal finds himself already starting to regret his ridiculous decision. Why the hell didn't I listen to Hira is all that's going through his head. As he stands there, in front of him is the creepy old principal, who suddenly bursts into laughter. The old man tells Gandalf to look around, take in the fresh night air, enjoy the pleasant breeze, and admire the moonlight casting its glow over everything. But Gandalf isn't feeling any of that. Everyone around, including him, is trembling in the presence of the countless monsters lurking nearby. Meanwhile, the instructor, the principal, and that woman in a robe just stand there unfazed. The entire area is literally crawling with monsters. And what's creeping the hell out of Gamdal is that the monsters are circling the people in red cloaks but not attacking them. Gamdal also notices that there are also kids among the people in red robes, which freaks him out even more. As the perspective shifts to a wide aerial view, we see how all the people in red robes are encircling the other villagers, acting as a natural barrier against the monsters. By now Gandalf is sure of one thing: the principal knows something about the monsters. A little while later, the villagers are seen arguing among themselves over the supplies they've gathered. One insists that they were the first to grab a particular item, while another claims ownership of the same thing. Meanwhile, Instructor Bayek quietly asks the principal if he's going to start it right away. The old man responds positively, saying that this is the perfect moment to begin. With a smirk, the principal snaps his fingers and declares that it's time to show them a miracle. The moment he snaps his fingers, all the monsters launch themselves at the villagers. However, while the monsters can be seen strangling and restraining the villagers, they are not actually trying to kill anyone. The entire situation feels bizarre and unnervingly calculated. Everyone is panicking. While this isn't the first time the old man has seen such despair on people's faces, he's still enjoying it just as much as ever. He revels in how pitiful and helpless humans can be, finding their desperate pleas for mercy in the face of fear both pathetic and strangely adorable. However, the old man feels a bit disappointed that he's not seeing much of a reaction from the guy the instructor chose. But Instructor Bayek proudly tells his senior to watch the front lines closely. When the principal shifts his gaze forward, his eyes widen in shock as he notices Gumball single-handedly obliterating the monsters. Gumball is crushing these creatures like numbers on an abacus. And now the tables have turned. It's the monsters trembling and crying in fear at the sight of his overwhelming strength. Gamdal can't seem to make sense why these monsters suddenly attacked out of nowhere, and what's even stranger is how the bastards in red robes are just standing there doing absolutely nothing. This only makes Gamdal more suspicious as he starts to think this might have been their plan all along. He always knew that walking around this area at night would be dangerous, but he hadn't expected to face this many monsters at once. Suddenly one of the monsters lunges at him, trying to take a bite out of his hand. But Gandalf grabs the creature like it's a trash bag and flings it away effortlessly. But soon more monsters lunge at Gandalf from behind. Reacting instantly, he twirls around with supersonic speed and delivers a devastating blow to each of their heads, leaving the eager bunch sprawled on the ground. Seeing this powerhouse of a man in action, the principal doesn't know how to react. He hasn't encountered someone this intriguing in a long time, but now that he is seeing this, he finally understands why Instructor Bayek holds Gandalf in such high regard. Gandalf is literally pushing away the monsters with nothing but his backpack, a feat far beyond what anyone could expect from a mere human. However, as strong as Gumball may be, he's still human eventually. The overwhelming number of monsters starts to take its toll, and it looks like defeat is inevitable. Just as the monsters are about to rip him apart, the old man decides it's time to stop this madness, but before he can intervene, he's stunned by what happens next. All the monsters swarming around our Gigachad are obliterated in an instant. Gamdal is carrying a flashlight in one hand and an axe in the other. He's literally obliterating the hell out of these monsters. Though he manages to push them back for a moment, he's swarmed again. The injured monsters return to attack him because he missed their vital points. There's no way out of this if he can't stop them from healing. He's sure there must be a way out, and all he needs to do is focus. As he does, his mind flashes back to the conversation he had with Hera, where she tried to warn him about following that old coot. Now he feels like an idiot for not listening to her. He wishes only he had powers like Chuck Buck's mother. He'd also love to be as skilled as Hera, as he needs all the strength he can muster just to protect his daughter. But sadly, he knows that this is simply not going to happen in reality, as the monsters keep closing in. The creepy figures under their red hoods just watch from the sidelines. Now that Gumball feels completely screwed, he decides to take the creepy old bastard with him as well. He summons all his strength in an attempt to outrun and overpower the monsters. But the sheer number of them eventually pins him to the ground as he faces what seems like certain death. His mind flashes back once again to the promise he made to Monster Mama. That no matter what happened he would be there for her and her child, but in return he wanted to become her husband. At that moment Monster Mama agreed to become his wife. But now, as he lies helpless, he feels disappointed that he can't keep his promise to protect them anymore. Surprisingly, though, the old man begins clapping and suddenly all the monsters withdraw. They retreat as quickly as they came, leaving Gumball and the villagers alive. Although they are all safe, the terror they experienced has left a permanent mark on their minds. The principal, on the other hand, claims that this is the miracle that exists in their Hope Village. Because of this miracle, everyone is safe and sound. Now that they think about it, they realize that they are indeed unscathed, not a single bite on their bodies. The old man continues with his speech, telling the villagers how they can have a fulfilling life free from monsters and a hopeful future instead of living in constant fear. He promises that everything they've dreamed of is possible in Hope Village, and that he will ensure their future is even better. All they need to do is trust him. Not surprisingly, all of the newly recruited villagers are in tears, willingly placing their faith in the old man's hands. They are ready to give everything for the village. Meanwhile, Gombold finally understands the scheme the old bastard is running. He realizes that the man has used fear to manipulate the villagers into trusting him. Gombold is now certain that these people are incredibly dangerous. The scene transitions back to the dimly lit underground ward. We see Chuck Block lying in bed. While the doctor is still lying beneath the bed, it seems like this nut job of a doctor is having a hard time falling asleep, especially with the ladies sleeping on top of him as the doctor continues to complain. Hira gives him a death glare, and this much was enough to humble this creepy bastard. Now that his whining is out of the way, both ladies are glad that they will be finally able to enjoy some peaceful sleep. The scene transitions to the apartment, where Mama Monster is living. It's already night, and Mama Monster is certain the cannibal tribe will eventually come after her. She also knows they might be using the tentacle planted inside her to track her location. She reflects on how that yellow-eyed bastard was demanding she return his body. Not only does she not remember anything that happened that day, but she also has no recollection of her past life. Just as she's lost in thought, a creepy monster suddenly crashes inside her apartment. But Mama jumps out of the way and retaliates back with a deadly slash. Seeing this creepy hairy monster, Mama is sure that she has seen this one before in that dungeon, but she has no clue how this monster knew about her location, or why she was not even able to detect this monster. Mama's confusion only grows when she hears the monster speak. The first thing the creature says is that it already knew Mama's exact location. Also, the monster seems offended that Mama only remembers her as a hairy monster. The creature claims that she had always wanted to face off with Mama one-on-one, but Mama isn't having any of it. And in an instant she grabs the monster by the throat and slams her to the ground. The fact that this monster just read her thoughts is driving Mama crazy. And it only gets worse when the monster admits that she indeed read her thoughts. Mama quickly demands to know if the creature is from the cannibal tribe or if she's working with others. But this hairy monster doesn't answer. Instead, she falls silent and attempts to retaliate. With no choice but to protect herself, Mama gets off the monster and the hairy sucker bolts out of the place. But Mama quickly retaliates with her needles again. Unfortunately, her poisonous needles fail to have any real effect. The hairy monster smugly claims to know everything about Mama, while Mama is left clueless about who or what this creature really is. Then the monster shifts the conversation, casually bringing up how Mama has a charming husband and an adorable daughter. She even mentions that Mama's family went to the village with the axe woman, and as if that wasn't enough, the hairy monster also knows that the cannibal tribe is after Mama too. Mama has no idea what the hairy monster is getting at with all this, and if she isn't part of the cannibal tribe, then who is she? The hairy woman quickly starts to transform a little, and all those hairs around her body begin to wrap themselves tighter. After her brief transformation, she launches herself at Mama. Mama is left stunned, realizing that this monster looks almost identical to her, but before we see these two Eren Yeager dueling it out, we flash back to Mama's memories. She explains how she always felt like someone was watching her. But when she looked around to check, she found nothing. At first she thought she was just being paranoid because she was tired, but it turns out she was wrong. There was a time when she constantly felt an icy cold stare on her, and now it seems like she's finally getting some answers about those mysterious looks she's always felt. The monster flings Mama out of the apartments. But Mama quickly kicks this bastard lady and throws her crashing down on the ground, while she herself just lands back on the ground safe and sound. She is sure that since it fell from above it probably died. But she soon finds herself proven wrong when this hybrid version of Venom stands back unscathed. It looks like Mama is already out of tricks. She's tried using her paralyzing poison and even attempted cutting off the monster's arm. But nothing seems to work against this strange anomaly. Still, Mama refuses to give up. She's sure there must be a way to overpower this hairy sucker. But the monster, who seems to be hearing all of Mama's thoughts, smugly reminds her that she's already done everything she could. According to the creature, there's no way Mama can defeat her. What's worse, the monster claims she can feel every emotion Mama experiences. And as fear begins to creep into Mama's mind, the creepy sucker feels it too. Eventually, Mama bolts out of the place as fast as she can. She knows she has to escape because deep in her bones, she can feel how dangerous this monster is, but it seems Mama never stood a chance. Before she can make it far, the creepy bastard pierces her from behind. The monster tells her that she can't possibly deny her existence any longer, so she better face the truth. The monster keeps piercing poor Mama relentlessly, continuing the attack. Blood splatters as the creature strikes tear through her, and eventually Mama exhausts herself from all the blood loss and torn limbs. This photocopy of Mama is furious that the real Mama isn't paying attention to her. All she wants is to be accepted. Meanwhile, Mama can feel her life slipping away. Pleasant memories flash across her mind. As she nears death, her mind drifts to a moment when she had her child on that fateful day, and in that flashback we see her child covered in hair just like this hairy monster. Suddenly, Mama snaps out of the nightmare. Her body is slick with sweat. But before she can catch her breath or make sense of her jumbled thoughts, she notices the cannibal tribe already looming over her. After taking Mama outside, Dion takes it upon herself to punch Mama as hard as she can across the face. But it's stupid Diane who ends up with a nasty cut on her hand from the sharp fangs in Mama's mouth. This ticks Diane off, so she starts kicking Mama instead. One of the cannibal tribe members points out how Mama is totally his type. And since she also has a kid, it just makes it even better for him. But hearing this, it's clear that Mama could never want to be with someone as filthy as this bastard. So she delivers a nut-cracking kick right between his legs, leaving his filthy head going bonkers with pain. When Dion tries to retaliate, she gets a solid kick of her own, sending her crashing into the wall. Mama quickly seizes the opportunity and bolts out of the place as fast as she can. Dion is furious to see how they got their butts kicked again, so she angrily turns to Rin and orders her to chase Mama. But this big booba is confident that no matter where they run, these guys can never escape. After all, they can track her anytime with the tentacle stuck in Mama's chest. So despite Mama's efforts to outrun them, Dion catches up and delivers a devastating blow right to her back. But Dion soon discovers that the person she attacked was just an ordinary zombie, and she ends up taking a nasty cut across her back from Mama in return. The horny monster who got kicked in the balls also attacks Mama, but he too ends up with a massive cut across his belly. Then comes the other guy who looks like a juggernaut. He punches Mama hard enough to send her toppling backward, but she quickly regains her balance and steadies herself over her feet. Dion and her companions seem to be in rough shape, but Rin is helping them recover. Even Mama finds it weird that the wounds she inflicted are healing so quickly, something she's never seen before. Dion then brings up Mama's family, and to trigger her further, she claims to know that they are in the Hope Village. The way Dion smiles when she says this makes it clear she has no good intentions for our Mama's family. The thought that this bitch is trying to threaten her family completely drives Mama crazy. And in a fit of rage, she lunges at Dion. But her reckless move leaves her wide open, and the horny bastard takes the chance to drill several holes into Mama's belly with a single punch. Despite the brutal hit, Mama gets back on her feet and quickly launches her tentacles. But the horny bastard uses his own tentacle-like hands to grab Mama tightly and completely tie her up. Once she's immobilized, Dion smirks with her trashy grin, and soon enough the entire place is swarmed with those monsters. Dion feels completely satisfied, thinking she's finally about to take her revenge. She's looking forward to tearing Mama apart. Just as she says this, the disgusting monsters start ripping off Mama's hands, while the poor mother endures agonizing pain. This piece of shit enjoys herself to the fullest. Diane is thinking of taking Mama as her pet once her father is done dealing with her. But it looks like their plan isn't going to go as smoothly as they think. The idiots soon notice someone approaching them. Before anyone can react, Dion gets brutalized with a smackdown that sends her crashing to the ground. That one hit is enough to leave her a bloody mess. Her partners are completely stunned to see this mysterious person knock out Dion with a single blow. Even the zombies in the vicinity start trembling in fear. At this point, it's clear who this mysterious person is. Enter the dungeon master and her brat. The mother has arrived to save another one and reunite with her daughter, while her son, as usual, is eager to play. Dion's team has started to sweat to see this tough opponent. Even Monster Mama doesn't know why the Dungeon Master is here. Of all times, she doesn't have the strength to deal with the Dungeon Master while already being tied up with these stupid thugs. It seems like our mama hasn't yet realized that the Dungeon Master is actually on good terms with her, so she's seeing her as a new threat. The horny guy asks Rin how they should proceed further, and all the other monsters have the same clueless expression, but Rin gathers her guts and tells everyone not to panic. They're not here to fight the Dungeon Master. All they need is Mama, who has a part of their father's body. She commands them to capture her for the sake of their father. At Rin's single command, all the monsters lunge at Mama. Meanwhile, the brat tells his mother that he's itching to play. His mother acknowledges this and uses her massive hands to take down all the monsters rushing toward Mama. The hands are absolutely destroying all the zombies in the vicinity except for Mama. Rin's face glistens with sweat as she realizes that the Dungeon Master only seems to be attacking her family members. Even Mama has no clue what's happening, but she soon figures it out. When she notices the Dungeon Master smiling back at her, the cannibal tribe members prepare themselves to confront the threat before them. Rin quickly commands them to attack. But most of the ordinary monsters are just cowering in fear and start running away when they see those giant hands coming toward them. Meanwhile, the core members of the cannibal group are charging at their enemy with full force. But the horny one gets his head cleanly cut off with a single slash from Mama's hand. The Juggernaut completely loses it when he sees his friend drop dead. He goes all out, slamming his giant hand down as fast as he can. The ground beneath shatters. But Mama has already disappeared from the scene. Before the hit can touch her, the Juggernaut frantically looks around trying to spot her. He doesn't want to attack randomly, knowing his own family members might get caught in the crossfire. But little does this giant idiot know Mama is standing right behind him. He doesn't even notice until it's too late. The poisonous attack Mama gave him causes his flesh to melt. And before he can do anything worthwhile, Mama is ready to pierce this bastard's head with her needle. A while later, Dion wakes up, and as she opens her eyes in her dazed state, she notices both Mama standing right over her. Terror grips her when she realizes that her entire family has been turned into minced meat, including the core members of the cannibal group. She is terrified while Monster Mama looms menacingly in front of her, demanding she reveal everything she knows. In her panic, Dion quickly spills all the juicy details. She starts by revealing that Hope Village is their second hideout and confirms she saw Mama's family there. The scene then quickly transitions to Hope Village, where all the new villagers have returned after completing the test they went through. Because of this test, everyone has started putting a lot of faith in the principal. Meanwhile, Gomdal is still struggling to get over the fact that the monsters controlled by the principal had the ability to talk. But sadly, he knows that even if he tells all this to Hira, there's not much they can do. Just then, a mysterious lady gestures toward him and tells him she's looking forward to meeting him at the hospital. A while later, she indeed appears at the hospital, where it looks like Hira is already ready to talk with this lady. Once she sits down, she introduces herself as Young Ju Lee, the mother of Young Hee. She claims she has heard a lot about Gombold from her daughter. The first thing Gombold notices is that this lady doesn't have a right arm. So she's using her left one to greet them, but instead of reciprocating the handshake, Hira just clicks her tongue, making the atmosphere even more awkward. Anyway, Young Ju Lee starts the conversation by asking Gundal about his thoughts on the miracle of Food Day. She wants to know if he liked the miracle. Gombold has no idea what she's asking with such a weird question, but he certainly doesn't want to believe in any miracle. Surprisingly, the woman is glad he doesn't believe in that crappy miracle bullshit. She was actually a bit worried that he might get fascinated by that old coot who calls himself the principal. So she's relieved to meet someone with similar views. Gumball then tells her to just reveal everything she knows about this and what the principal is actually doing. To which she responds that he uses his innocent smile to trap people. either feeding them to monsters or transforming them into monsters. She explains that he's basically a bloody old man who created the cannibal tribe. The mention of the cannibal tribe shocks Gamdal. And even Hira isn't thrilled to hear that name. Gamdal asks for confirmation, wondering if this place is actually run by the cannibal tribe. Yongju calmly agrees, explaining that while the village might seem like an ordinary place, it's really more like a monster factory here. As suspicions only grow after hearing this, it feels strange to her that Yongju would be sharing such classified secrets with people she's only just met today. She demands the full truth, and Yongju is willing to share everything she knows. Hira then declares that she is leaving tomorrow. This catches the big guy off guard, because they have not done anything about Chukbok's treatment. Hira reminds Gamdal that they can't stay here, especially since they're already in trouble before even starting the treatment. She tells him that when they leave they can take the doctor with them as a valuable hostage. And she plans to steal some supplies for the treatment from the village as well, not to mention. Hira is also itching to kill this woman on the spot. The poor lady gulps nervously, feeling the intense glares coming from Hira. Gamdal tries to snap Hira out of her anger, but the doctor, who had been the victim of Hira's killing intent, warns everyone to watch their language even when this brute lady is sleeping. He then reminds them that while this place is fully equipped with everything they could imagine, he still finds it difficult to cure Chukbok. He's unsure if taking the little girl back home would help her treatment. Yongju agrees with this, explaining that if Hira acts too rashly, Chukbok won't receive proper treatment in time and her condition will worsen. Eventually Chukbok could turn into a lovely little monster. While the idea of being a cute monster doesn't seem all that bad to all of us, it's definitely not something Hira would accept. In a burst of anger she grabs Yong-hee by the throat. Both men try to talk some sense into Hira, but she's dead set on finding out how Yongju learned about Chukbok's illness. Since only the doctor knew about it, the doctor quickly stammers out that Yongju can be trusted. But Hira doesn't seem to think that way. She's boiling with rage, determined to eliminate any source of trouble that might hinder their future. She continues to tighten her grip on Yongju's throat, asking how the principal already knew about Chukbok. The poor lady manages to respond, saying that the principal is a dangerous man and he's after Chukbok. Even if they leave this place, he will send monsters after them. Despite her words, Hira's grip only tightens further. In desperation, Yongju finally screams at the top of her lungs, promising to give Hira anything she wants: treatment, food, anything. In exchange for one thing, she wants Hira to kill the old man in order to save her own daughter. The two men fall silent as they watch this desperate mother. And even Hira grows quiet. Slowly her rage begins to subside, and she finally releases her massive grip from the lady's throat. Hira agrees to the demands of Yongju, but in return she wants her to keep her word as well. She extends her hand as a gesture of goodwill, and supports her to stand up. Meanwhile, Chukbok has been awake this entire time, quietly listening to everything the adults were talking about. Later, we see Yongju with the doctor. Her neck is still sore and Yongju just can't get enough even after complaining about it so much, but the doctor comments that she got lucky, only suffering from a sore neck. The doctor then asks her if what she did was the right decision. He reminds her that they're up against the cannibal tribe, which is a huge risk, and asks if she's sure she won't regret her decision. Later, not to mention, the doctor has no clue about how they're going to cure Chukbok, when they don't even know the cause of her symptoms, but it seems Yongju isn't bothered by it. She's confident that the doctor is smart enough to figure something out. And as for regrets, she has none. She is determined to make this decision for her daughter's future. She is sure that her father would have done the same for her, and this is also her chance to redeem herself. To understand what happened to this woman in the past, we flash back 3 years ago. Through the desolate roads she and her family walked together, risking their lives to collect food and avoid monsters. Along the way they were on their way to the village her husband had mentioned, called Hope Village. As they walked, the young girl started starving. But her father reassured her to hang on a little longer, saying they were almost there. He pointed to her mother, who was doing her best to stay strong despite the harsh conditions. As much as Yongju wanted to sacrifice herself to save supplies for her daughter, they finally made it to Hope Village. It was all thanks to her husband Min Sugo, whose optimism had given her enough courage to survive until they arrived. When the gates of the Hope Village opened, the first person they met was the principal with a big smile on his face. He warmly welcomed them into the village. And everyone, including the principal, seemed cheerful and happy to see the newcomers. Felt like a dream to young Ju. Unlike the living hell they had endured outside, the village was full of happiness and warmth. Just like before the apocalypse. Mama quickly brushed aside her concerns and felt immense relief. She was glad they had made it. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel hope. That day she cried uncontrollably. To think that her family had returned to a happy, everyday life after settling in Hope Village was something that seemed too good to be true. Young He, who had been weak, grew up healthy and strong enough to play with her friends. Her husband became the voice of the village, helping it thrive. Thanks to her family and the villagers. She had healed as well and took on the responsibility of caring for the newcomers. To the village. When the doctor arrived at the village for the first time, he was quite fascinated by this place as well as a little dubious. Whenever he saw her husband cuddling with her, he felt an inexplicable irritation. Though he couldn't quite understand why, the pivotal moment that changed young Ju's mind was the miracle that the principal showed them. At first, the principal's unusual tests seemed like the only way to ensure her family's safety. And she believed that the village was their sanctuary. The warm, thriving community provided a sense of security, and for a time it felt like a haven from the horrors outside. But everything changed when her husband returned one day, his face pale and full of worry. He urgently told her that the village was far more dangerous than she realized. He claimed to have seen the monsters and discovered the dead bodies of villagers who had left the village hidden away in the basement. He begged her to pack their things and leave immediately, warning her that if they didn't, they could be the next to end up as monsters. Or in the basement. However, young Ju was steadfast in her refusal to leave. She reminded him that even if they managed to escape, the outside world was no better. Death and danger awaited them there. She couldn't risk her daughter's life again by taking her out into the harsh, uncertain world. If they were going to face hell, then it would be here in the village. And she was determined to protect her family within its walls, no matter the cost. She told him to stay put while she would handle everything herself. She was confident that her husband was simply overthinking, so she decided to confront the principal herself and reveal everything her husband had told her. The principal listened calmly. And to her relief, he reassured her that everything would be fine. He even praised her for her honesty, claiming that trust was the foundation of the village's strength. For a moment she felt reassured, believing the principal's words were genuine. However, that fleeting relief turned into unimaginable terror. She found her husband dead, brutally mutilated, and her own hand severed, all of it happening in front of her eyes. She couldn't comprehend how things had spiraled so terribly out of control. Was it because her husband had gone into the basement without hesitation? Or was it because she had ignored the warning signs and placed her trust in the wrong person? Then the principal began to speak, recounting the peculiar habits of cuckoo birds. He explained how cuckoos lay their eggs in the nests of other birds, leaving the unsuspecting mother bird to raise cuckoo's young. When the cuckoo hatches, it pushes the mother bird's own eggs out of the nest, ensuring that all the attention and care is focused on the cuckoo chick alone. The poor mother bird raises the cuckoo with love. Even when the cuckoo matures, it remains selfishly dependent on its adoptive parent, until it finally abandons the nest, leaving nothing behind but devastation. This was one of the reasons the principal disliked cuckoo birds. He reminded her that he had raised her with all his faith because he believed they were family. But once someone dared to act like a cuckoo bird, it infuriated him beyond belief. He went absolutely bonkers because he simply couldn't entertain the fact that the rats who had betrayed their faith no longer belonged in his village. That day had been a total devastation for the poor mother, and her tears flowed involuntarily. Like this, she began apologizing, promising that it wouldn't happen again. She claimed it was all her fault that she couldn't convince her husband, so she would do anything the principal wanted of her, whether as his servant or slave. So please, she begged him to save her husband. That was when Instructor Bayak stepped up and kicked her hard across the face. He was pissed that how could she ask for their trust when she had betrayed them once already. He wouldn't tolerate any ungrateful rats living in their sanctuary. The old man told Beck to simmer down, and since she had at least been honest and confessed everything her husband had told her, he decided to give her another chance. But it would be the last chance. He threw her a knife and demanded that she kill that cuckoo bird. Then he would recognize her as a member of his family again, but of course the lady couldn't bear to kill her own husband, so she refused to comply. The principal quickly brought up her daughter, which eventually left young Ju with no choice but to gather her guts and take her own husband's life. As she held the dagger in her hand, her husband looked at her for the last time and told her to just do it. He also whispered something that only she could hear, and with that she took the life of her own husband. Later that old bastard hugged her and officially recognized her as a member of his village. The next day everyone had gathered, and they all expressed their sorrow over the death of one of their family members. The old man spun his lies and told the villagers that the dead man had bravely fought against the monsters but had eventually lost his life, while his wife had lost her arm, but thanks to their sacrifice, everyone would be safe in the village. With fake tears in his eyes, he expressed his great sorrow and remorse that one of their family members had to die like this. As expected, all of the people started showing the principal their support, saying it wasn't entirely his fault. That bastard of an old man was truly one of a kind, swaying everyone's mind and winning their trust and sympathy. Beck, the bastard who treated her husband like an insect, was offering his condolences with flowers. But the most disgusting person in that crowd was her. She was the one who had staged this entire show. Just the memories of the time when she killed her husband made her want to puke her guts out. Her greed had basically killed her husband. And she couldn't even bring herself to kill herself because of the guilt. Her daughter young, he had been relying on the principal since her father's death, and she would rather die than forgive herself for what happened. However, she had work to do. If this continued, they would take advantage of her daughter as well, and she would live a miserable life worse than her husband Minsu's. At this moment she made up her mind. It didn't matter how much time it took, she would kill them all to keep Yang-hee safe and avenge Minsu no matter what the cost. She would do it. The flashback finally ends, and we find ourselves in the hospital. It's the 28th experiment the doctor has conducted, and he has finally discovered that Chukbok differs significantly from the other monsters. In the second experiment, he gave a lab rat a blood sample from her mutated finger, and it only took 35 seconds for the rat to mutate. On the contrary, he also tried injecting another rat with blood from a different part of her body, but nothing happened. He also conducted a few additional tests using various methods, but he couldn't determine the cause of her mutation. However, he had figured out one thing. He discovered a kind of membrane at the end of the mutated part that seemed to stop the virus from spreading to other body parts of hers, and he needed more time to investigate further. Chukbok seems to have a gene that can stop the infection or is immune to it. Suddenly Chukbok sneezes, which scares the hell out of the doctor, who had been in deep concentration. The sweet girl has her snot dangling out of her nose, and this time she's broken her previous record by having the longest snot. The doctor feels creeped out and offers her a tissue to wipe that stuff off her face. The girl then asks the doctor if she is going to become a monster, because she overheard him last night. Well, it seems like the doctor has no clue how to comfort her. So he tries his best. He tells her not to worry, though it won't be easy. But there must be a way. He assures her that she doesn't need to worry about what they said last night. The doctor then thinks to himself, if this would be enough to comfort her, as he'd be quite annoyed if she started crying. But to his surprise, the girl doesn't seem bothered by this at all. In fact, she's happy that she'll be strong like her mother when she turns into a monster. She wants to become a huge monster in order to protect her mother and father. Just the thought of being strong, protecting her family, and getting all the praise makes her feel proud. Although she's idolizing herself as some kind of superhero in her imagination, in the doctor's imagination, all he could see was a mindless Chukbok, unconsciously thinking about her mommy and daddy and offering them food with her tiny monstrous hands. Suddenly the gate of the ward creaks open, and in comes Yongju. She announces that they are ready. Chukbok curiously asks about her parents and where they are going. Yongju just pats the little one on the head and tells her that they will be back soon. She asks if Chukbok wants to play a game with her, a hostage game actually. The scene transitions to outside, where we see Young-hee with one of her friends. Her friend inquires if she knows where the principal is right now, to which Young-hee points toward the basement, claiming that he's probably in the newcomers area down there. As we enter the basement, We see the principal and Bayak followed by our duo. The old man is buttering them up, glad that they decided to stay in the village. Gumball returns the flattery with an equally grateful tone. Gumball then questions this place, stating that he had no idea a space like this existed in the basement. The old man explains that this is a shelter they use when something dangerous happens. The old man then asks the big guy if young Ju came to the hospital to meet him on the first day, to which the big guy agrees right away. The old man then follows up with another question asking what she told him. He claims that she told him a lot of things, like how good this village is and how highly she spoke of all the people living here. She gave full credit to the principal for making the village run smoothly. Just as Gamdal finishes talking, the old man lets out a giggle which soon erupts into laughter. When Hira asks this creepy man why he's laughing, Beck responds that the story Gamdal has come up with is quite entertaining, now that Gamdal and Hira are part of the family. Beck believes they should not be lying like this since they are lying through their teeth. Beck sees no reason not to kill them. The old man would love to keep our duo in the village as they've proven to be a great resource for this place, but as much as he hates to admit it, he has also realized that they are a threat to the village. Since they are not part of this place, Hira asks if they can leave now. The old man quickly responds that she doesn't have to leave, because there is another way she can become part of their family. If they become his true family, he promises to let them meet their daughter. The scene transitions outside the village where all of the people are going absolutely nuts, panicking. We see young Ju commanding the other red-robed men, forcefully restraining everyone. Her demands are simple: if they value their lives, they should follow her and leave the village as soon as possible. Seeing her mother lead a rebellion leaves her daughter utterly bamboozled. We then learned that this old coot knew from the start that this rebellion was going to take place. He knew it would happen as he was well aware of all the efforts Yangju put into this rebellion. He had seen how she persuaded our duo in the hospital, and even her plan to threaten his family at this very moment. However, he did not intervene in her plans because this was an opportunity for him as well. He could find all the cuckoo birds who betrayed him, and he plans to remove them altogether. Some useful ones can become his new family, and the rest can be fed to the monsters. He can't wait to see the devastation and hopelessness on her face when she figures out that all her efforts were for nothing. Meanwhile, our poor guy's facing up against this disgusting monster, who literally has multiple tongues which are making our duo to avoid its attack. Although Gamdal is carrying a weapon Yangju gave them, the monster in front of them is enormous, and this weapon won't be enough to take it down, so they better retreat for the moment. He quickly tells Hira to step back, but this lady is as stubborn as a mule. Instead, she charges forward, cutting her way through the slimy tongues, trying their best to grab her. Once she's done slicing through all the tongues, she proceeds to take the head of this disgusting monster. The monster notices Hira coming from behind, but it happened to be just her scarf. Well, that scarf was just a decoy. Hira quickly throws her jacket over the monster's face, and while it's disoriented for a split second, Hira proceeds to chop its head off. Although Hira manages to cut the head of the monster, her swing misses its mark slightly, and the monster finally breaks free from its skin. But this grand reveal proves to be just meaningless because this bitch gets axed over its head right away, and Hira did not even sweat while throwing it. In the meantime, young Ju's rebellion is going really well. To threaten the villagers even further, she injures the poor doctor and the blood splatters out. Chuck Bak, watching this, does not look terrified at all apparently. She was told to act scared when the doctor got injured, so she quickly started pretending to be terrified. That is when one of the villagers addresses young Ju and expresses his disdain towards her. He is annoyed that she is rebelling against the principal who gave everyone a happy life. Meanwhile, young Ju had already mentally prepared herself for this criticism, so she responds with a cold demeanor. This leaves the villagers who initially wanted to retaliate losing their morale, and eventually they throw their weapons down. The lady feels relieved that at least now they can minimize the damage by sending the villagers to a safe location, and the weapons can also be put to use. It seems like it was a wise decision to send those two down with the principal, otherwise the old man might have already escaped without a scratch, and the people could have started a riot with that momentum. However, there's still a chance that the sly old man had predicted everything, so Yang Ju doesn't want to let her guard down. That's when something unexpected happens. Yangi appears in the scene holding the little one in her arms and a gun in her hand. She fires the gun into the air to grab everyone's attention. then points the barrel directly at her mother and commands her to let go of the villagers. Not only is her mother shocked, but even the villagers are bewildered to see Yang He wielding a gun. It seems Yang He has already been brainwashed by the principal. Apparently he had told her in advance that her mother would lead a rebellion against the village and gave her the gun for this very purpose. As Yang He aims the weapon, her mother begins walking toward her. Her companions quickly warn her not to approach, as it's too dangerous, but Yang Ju continues her slow, deliberate steps and calmly tells her daughter to relax. Yang He, however, has a lot of questions she wants answered. She starts the conversation by asking her mother why she would take the villagers hostage and how she could possibly harm the doctor. Her mother approaches her to take the gun from her hands. But her daughter's mind is so influenced by the principal's shady practices that she believes it should have been her mother who died instead of her father. The girl panics suddenly, and in a moment of confusion she aims the barrel at Chuck Box's head, then shoots a few bullets at the red-robed men. She quickly begins running toward the basement gate. Convinced that the only family she has now is the principal, she must follow his words and get to him. The scene then transitions to our mama, where we see the sweaty face of Dion, who is being held hostage. Apparently she is showing the secret way into the village. Dion is sweating nervously as she sees that all of her minions are dead. However, when she looks back at our mama, she can tell that she's pretty exhausted. For a moment Dion thinks this might be her chance to make a run for it, but Mama can read Dion's face clearly and questions her about her intentions. This spooks Dion, sending a chill down her spine, and she quickly tries to steer the conversation away, stating that Mama looks tired and they still have a little more to walk. Suddenly their attention is drawn by a massive thud, and it's actually Rin, accompanied by her giant pet monster. Rin looks annoyed at Mama and is clearly eager to take her revenge. Dion is both relieved and bewildered to see that her sister is still alive, as she had thought Rin was already pushing up daisies. Rin doesn't waste any time with small talk, she just tells Dion to move away. If she doesn't want to get caught in the collateral damage with that, Rin commands her wild dog Bushun to attack, and the monster lunges at Mama with full speed. Dion bolts out of the scene as fast as she can while Mama prepares herself to face the monster. But before we can see the showdown between the two, the scene transitions back to Yang He, who is running with Chuck Buck in her arms, being chased by her mother and the other red-robed men. Her mother quickly tells her not to go further inside as it's quite dangerous, but the daughter once again aims the barrel of her gun straight at her mother. The girl right away refuses to accept someone like her as her mother. All she wants is to remove her mother from her life because she already has the principal and the villagers as her family. That's when little Chuck Box speaks up. Clearly annoyed, she tells Yangi that she shouldn't be so mean to her mother. Chuck Bok is genuinely feeling sorry for her mother. Thinking how sad it is that her daughter would say such harsh things to her, Chuck Bok's words begin to reach Young, and her hands holding the gun start to tremble. Right at that moment her mother apologizes to her. She is genuinely sad that she wasn't there for her daughter. When she needed her the most, she thought it would be better for her daughter. But now she realizes that she was a terrible mother who didn't care enough for her. She reassures her daughter that she doesn't have to worry about the doctor, since it was all a show with fake blood, because she would never harm her family. All she wants is for her daughter to trust her. The mother even goes as far as to say that she's not bothered by what her daughter said earlier about her dying. But for the last time she wants her daughter to believe in her trash of a mother. The daughter, left emotionally vulnerable, can only cry, and eventually she apologizes to her mother for being so harsh. Right at that moment a monster drops down, and before anyone can react it grabs both Young Hee and poor Chuck Bok. The mother rushes to save her daughter as soon as she sees her in danger, but the monster quickly leaps away after acquiring its target. Young Ju, consumed with anger, immediately orders her team to call for backup. She is furious that the old man had plotted all of this in advance and kidnapped her daughter. Meanwhile, as the monster takes the two girls away, Chuck Bok notices others fighting the monsters. What catches her attention is that Hira and Gamdal are also fighting against these creatures. When she shouts at the duo, they both look at her. Hira's face immediately falls as she notices the monster holding on to Chuck Bok. Hira's fury erupts, and with a single slash she takes down the monster in front of her. However, before she could rescue Chuck Bok, the monster manages to escape. After a brief journey, the monster finally stops and releases both girls just as Young Hee catches her breath. She hears the principal addressing her. he praises her for escaping from the traders. And bringing the child to him, he acknowledges it must have been difficult but assures her she did an excellent job. The old man then makes a promise that from now on his family will protect her. With that he turns his attention to Chuck Buck. But just as the disgusting man reaches out to place his hand on Chuck Buck, he suddenly stops. He notices that he isn't letting go of the child. Curious and slightly annoyed, he asks her why. For a moment he is silent, but then she finally speaks. She admits she always thought it was strange when people who loved the village disappeared without saying goodbye. Or when others were kicked out for being bad. That's what the principal always told them. But now she understands the truth. She explains how during their journey with the monster, she recognized some familiar faces among the monsters below, faces she had seen before, people who had left the village. Now it's clear to her that the monsters were those very same people transformed. Yangi recalls how everyone who had been a valuable asset to the village had been turned into mindless monsters. Just as the realization hits her, Beck slams his foot down, trying to intimidate her. He's annoyed by her audacity to question the principal's judgment. He wonders aloud if she's forgotten the kindness he showed her while raising her young. He doesn't want to seem ungrateful for everything she's received, but she can't understand how their families were turned into monsters. That's when Bike kicks her hard in the stomach, and the force of it knocks her out cold. The large man looks down at her, reminding her that this was just a warning. If she keeps talking like that, she'll be dead for sure. At that moment, the old man steps in, ordering Instructor Bayak to calm down. He then addresses Yong. He's speaking in a voice that holds no sympathy. He reminds her that this might be difficult for her little mind to understand. But in this world, not everyone can be happy. The world is divided between the strong and the weak. According to the law of the jungle, for survival, everything is fair game. While the weak simply wait for death, the strong take everything from them. The only way for the weak to survive is to be protected by the strong, just like him and his monsters. The old man is confident that once she's older, young, he will eventually understand. That's when Chuck Box speaks up. And without a shred of hesitation in her voice, she calls him a bad old man. She quickly pulls the bandage off her little infected finger, and after raising it high into the air, as if to make a point, she declares that people who make others cry are bad. And if they don't stop being mean to her, she's going to complain to her parents about everyone here. Her dramatic little speech grabs everyone's attention. And they all burst out laughing, amused by the sight of such a cute little girl talking so big. Not only is our little one annoyed by their laughter, but Chuckbach is also furious that they're not taking her seriously, so she gathers enough air in her lungs, enough to make her belly bulge. She lets out a screeching roar, calling out for her mommy and daddy. The old man snickers at her cute last-ditch effort. They all find her charming and admirable, having the confidence to seek hope even in the most desperate of situations. She looks so innocent that the old man wants to relish every moment of smashing her into pieces with his own hands. As the monster of an old man approaches, Chuck Block finally panics. She instinctively begins to cry and starts calling out to her mommy with her volume cranked up to the max. This time her cry for help finally bore fruit. The old bastard quickly found himself struck in the mouth by a projectile. And the object that hit him was none other than Rin's head. Instinctively, Instructor Bayak reached for his gun. But before he could make use of it, an axe flew through the air, smashing his weapon in half. Chaos erupted around them as every monster in the vicinity went wild, wondering who had dared to throw such a thing at their principal's face. Their question was soon answered when they saw our mama standing there on the other side. Hira stood equally stunned and enraged. The two women were a force to be reckoned with. The one thing driving their fury was the fact that these monsters had dared to harm Chuck Buck, their daughter. Both mothers let out a deafening roar, a declaration that they would kill them all. Meanwhile, we find Dion once again huddled in a quiet corner, her body trembling with fear. She's in shock, unable to comprehend how our mama not only obliterated the pet that Rin had brought, but that Rin herself had also lost her life back in the thick of it. When the monsters noticed the yellow eyes of our mama, it doesn't take them long to realize who they are dealing with. This is the female monster their father had been searching for. But they are confused about how she got inside, as the monsters were supposed to be guarding the entrance. So if she's here, it means she's killed all of them. Meanwhile, Chuck Buck waves excitedly at her mama. Though mama is relieved to see her daughter safe and sound, she is still worried about Gomdal. At the same time, Hira observes the changes in the monster mama's appearance. Now she seems to possess 3 tendrils. And there is also something emerging from her tentacles. Something different from before. This sight only strengthens Hira's belief that this woman is a real threat to Chuck-buck. For some reason, the principal begins to feel uneasy upon realizing that the yellow-eyed woman before him is the very monster. His father and the founder had been searching for one of the monsters. Cautiously asks if the principal is all right. But it's clear that he is far from it, especially after being humiliated by having Rin's head thrown at him. The principal then straightens up and barks orders. He commands the monsters to capture the yellow-eyed woman at all costs and directs the rest to kill Hira. Meanwhile, Young-hee is paralyzed with fear, trembling uncontrollably. She frantically suggests that Chuck-bak should run away while they still have a chance. But Chuck-bak, fearless as ever, refuses. She's confident that her mommies are strong enough to handle anything. And she couldn't be more certain of that fact. Instructor Bayak and a group of monsters advance toward Hira, while others charge at our Mama Young-hee. Overcome with terror, wishes she could flee as far away as possible. Chuck-bak, however, watches calmly because her confidence in her mamas is unshakable. Well, Chuck-bak has all the right to feel confident. The monsters don't even realize what's happening when Mama's tentacles begin to swing. In an instant, needles pierces the monsters. Screams of agony erupt one by one when the effects of her poisonous needles take place. Mama moves effortlessly, her tentacles thrashing and stabbing with lethal accuracy. The monsters have no chance but disintegrate into flesh and blood. The principal stands frozen, unable to believe his eyes. She's literally making them explode with hardly any effort at all. Meanwhile, one of the monsters begins its barrage of bullets right over Hira. But our girl just zips around with this godly speed you wouldn't believe. They've got no clue what the hell is happening, and one of them soon gets his head smashed with an axe. Then Hira suddenly appears right in front of Instructor Bayek. First, she takes out the monster standing to Beck's right shoulder, then she retaliates against Bayek himself, leaving him with a solid wound across his chest. Meanwhile, Chuck-buck bolts toward her mama and hugs her as tightly as she can. The little one confidently and proudly claims that she didn't cry while she was away from her mama. This causes the proud mama to burst into tears, and both mother and daughter cry because they missed each other so much. Seeing this touching moment between mother and daughter, Jong-hee is left questioning herself all the times she berated her mother flash before her eyes. And she has no clue why she was so rude to her. Overcome with sorrow, she bursts into tears and starts apologizing to her mother. Meanwhile, the old coot is losing his mind, seeing that all the monsters have been dealt with. It looks like he's next in line to get screwed, because Hira is already standing behind him after taking care of Instructor Bayek. The deathly vibes Hira is giving off are enough to make the old man sweat uncontrollably. He yells out loud, trying to call the founder. He shouts at the top of his lungs to wake him up. But just as Hira swings her axe to shut him up, she suddenly stops. A monster pops out of the old man's mouth, asking why he was called. Hira is unsettled to realize that this creepy old man had been keeping a monster inside him, but founder or whatever Hira doesn't waste time, and quickly swings her axe to take this monster down. Of course, we all know this monster is going to be a tough nut to crack, and as expected, it stops the axe with just its bare hands. In retaliation, it grows sharp projectiles over its hand and launches them at Hira. She quickly jumps away as fast as she can. Meanwhile, the old man finally coughs his founder out of his mouth. It doesn't take long for the monster to recognize that our mama and Chuck-buck are the ones his father has been looking for. And he seems thrilled that all his prey is literally standing right in front of him. The old man starts apologizing for calling the founder out here all of a sudden. But this old coot doesn't get to finish. The founder silences him by cutting his ear off entirely. Not stopping there, the monster begins growing even bigger, sprouting sharp objects from its back. In the next moment, it launches those sharp objects all over the area. Hira grabs Young-hee and drops to the ground to shield her, while Monster Mama makes sure to protect Chuck-bak. As soon as those projectiles hit the surroundings, they begin shattering everything around them. It turns out this bastard was aiming for the lights on the ceiling all along. Soon the entire place plunges into darkness except for the spot where Mama and Chuck-bak are. While Chuck-bak is still disoriented from the attack, Mama notices something and instinctively lashes out with her tentacles to retaliate. But she quickly realizes it's just Hira and another human girl. Thankfully, Hira manages to grab the tentacle before it could pierce Young-hee. Suddenly, ominous voices echo from their surroundings. Both mamas immediately go on high alert, facing in opposite directions to keep an eye on things. Mama isn't sure she can fight while protecting Chuck Buck at the same time. That's when Hira suggests they head straight for the exit. To get the kids to safety once, she hands the kids over to Gombold. She can return to deal with the monster, but before they can act, Mama gets pierced by a sneaky attack, while holding on to the enemy's tentacles to keep it from advancing. She orders Hira to take the kids and run. The monster starts retaliating fiercely. Hira makes the wise decision to sprint out of the place with he carrying Chuck Buck in her arms. They leave poor Mama behind to face off against the massive monster, who is clearly nothing but trouble. Chuck Buck starts losing her mind seeing her mother in trouble. But that's when Hira notices something even more troubling. Instructor Bayek isn't on the ground anymore. This can only mean one thing. The bastard is alive, and worse, he's right behind her. Before poor Hira can react, he quickly delivers a flurry of cuts, leaving her barely any time to react. Both girls start to panic, and he starts running away after getting overwhelmed by fear. Chuck Buck, on the other hand, yells at her to just drop her down because she ain't no coward. That bastard Bayek doesn't waste time. Using some slick moves, he quickly pins Hira to the ground. Mocking her, he asks if she knows about the strong martial arts of the Philippines. He boasts about learning them during his time as a police officer there, and admits he was impressed by her earlier fast and unique moves. But now that the tables have turned, he is curious about what she's going to do to save herself. Meanwhile, as he sprints away with Chuck Buck in her arms, that creepy old man steps in her path, blocking her escape, but just before he can do anything, He's mother Ju comes out of nowhere and knocks the old sucker down with a single bonk over the head, while the mother berates that old bastard for daring to advance on her girl. He starts crying, overwhelmed to see her mom coming to her rescue. The mother then tosses the stick aside and hugs her girl as tightly as she can. He doesn't waste a second, apologizing profusely and promising to never use harsh words again. Meanwhile, poor Chuck Buck is caught in the middle of this passionate mother-daughter hug, getting squished from both sides. Just then Gumball and a group of red-robed guys arrive on the scene. Chuck Buck quickly shouts, panicked about her mother being in trouble. And soon after, everyone begins to hear these nasty sounds of banging, thudding, and blood splattering echoing from afar. It's coming from none other than poor Mama. She's been pierced all over by that bastard of a monster with holes in every part of her body. Chuck Buck's jaw drops in horror. And even the red-robed guys are standing in awe at the sight of Monster Mama. They immediately decide to take her down, raising their weapons to shoot. But before they can do anything, Gombold stops them, shouting at the top of his lungs that she is his wife. Gombold rushes to his wife and lifts her in his arms. But before he can get far, that same monster looms up right behind him. Startled by its massive presence, Gombold freezes Chuck Buck with her tiny finger pointing at the monster. Shouts that this is the bad monster. As Gombold tries to run as fast as he can, the other red-robed guys unleash a barrage of bullets. Every single bullet hits the monster, but it's completely unfazed. Like some kind of bulletproof beast with a money-back guarantee, not only does the monster shrug off the attack, but it quickly retaliates, piercing one of the robed men straight through the belly with its tentacle. The others rush to pull the tentacle out. But before they can, the monster squeezes every last drop of blood from the poor guy, leaving him pale and unconscious on the ground. The monster relishes the taste of the blood it just drained, and with its appetite whetted, it's ready for more. It throws its tentacles at the remaining robed men, piercing them one by one. Each unfortunate victim is drained dry. Their lifeless shells just lay on the ground, with no one left to drain. The monster bellows a chilling threat. It demands everyone to hand over our Mama and Chuck Buck, promising that if they comply, he'll show them a miracle. As soon as the people in hiding hear this, one of the robed ladies grabs little Chuck Buck and presents her to the monster just as it demanded. She even promises to capture our Mama as well, begging the monster to keep its word and let the townspeople live as they did before. But the monster sees no reason to let these lowly humans live. He pierces his hand straight into the lady's belly, showing just how annoyed he is that they destroyed the community all because of their greed. He recalls how he gave them a life of prosperity, shelter, food, everything they needed, so in his mind, he has the right to decide if the livestock he raised is worth keeping alive, Or not everyone is trembling in fear, unsure of how to deal with this monstrosity. Meanwhile, Mama is still lying on the ground, her body battered and bruised. But she's certain that, in just a few minutes, she can kill that creature. On the other side, Hira is still locked in battle with that bastard. After exchanging a few words, they dive back into the fight. As for Monster Mama, she's back in action. She quickly grabs Chuck Buck and launches her away from the monster. Gamdal is quick enough to catch her in midair. Now that Chuck Buck is out of harm's way, Mama is ready to deal with the monster. She fires a series of poison needles at him. But the monster just takes them head on. He boasts that his body has no senses, making it incapable of feeling pain. So in his eyes, it's all useless effort. But our Mama makes it clear that this monster isn't escaping the eternal agony that awaits him. The monster retaliates with its tentacles, delivering a devastating blow that gravely injures her. Let's not forget about Hira and that bastard. They're still locked in a fierce battle. From the looks of it, the enemy seems to have the upper hand in this clash as well. Meanwhile, the remaining townsfolk start firing their guns at the monster, but once again, the bullets don't seem to be doing any real damage. It's as if the beast is completely invincible. Young Ju, however, refuses to live in a family where her loved ones are treated as nothing more than fodder. She declares that she wants a village where her daughter can grow up safely, free from fear. The monster, on the other hand, just scoffs to hear this. Mama then decides to step up her game. After pelting the monster with countless poison needles, she prepares for her final assault. But before we get to see the outcome of her fight, Hira decides she's done playing games with her own opponent. She's had enough of this guy, and aims to end the squabble once and for all. In a shocking move, Hira delivers a brutal slap across the bastard's face, leaving him momentarily blinded. Seizing the opportunity, she grabs the very weapon this fool had been using and unleashes a relentless barrage of blows. The big monster notices that his body is starting to crack. He hadn't even realized it, but it seems our Monster Mama was trying to do this from the start. Realizing he's in deep trouble, he begins to run as fast as he can in order to put some safe distance between him and his enemy. Hira, meanwhile, has overpowered her enemy as well. Both Beck and the monster shout in disbelief, giving it their all in front of our ladies. But in the end, both ladies overpower their opponents, while Mama pierces the bastard with her tentacles. Hira lands a final slap across Bayak's face, knocking him out cold for good. But the monster, on the other hand, isn't done yet. Even after taking a sizzling hot drill straight into its chest, it somehow remains alive. It retaliates as quickly as it can, forcing Mama to retreat for a moment. The monster then goes through a little transformation, and it literally looks like a ball of spikes. But that doesn't scare Mama. She charges up her poisonous spear, which she's formed with her hand, and obliterates the beast like it's a watermelon. Later we see all the red-robed guys and monsters littering the ground dead. That bastard old man is still alive, hiding behind a vehicle. He grits his teeth, thinking about how he devoted himself to this village, and this is what he gets in return. He fed them, sheltered them, and this is how he's repaid. But just as he's brooding, he gets a solid slap on the butt from our little Chuck Box. When he turns around, he sees Gombold and Chuck Buck behind him. Later, everyone who survived that day stands around this bastard of an old man, while he begs, reminding them how everything he did was for the sake of the village. His words might sway the group, but not Young Ju, and her daughter Young Ju aims her gun directly at this bastard's head and drills a hole right through it, ensuring he reaches hell before anyone else. With that, everything is over. Young Ju collapses from exhaustion. But at least she avenged her husband, and she feels a sense of relief and satisfaction. After it was over, the village changed a lot in just a few days. The corpses of the principal and monsters were disposed of, and a small memorial service was held for the victims. Everyone decided to seal all the passages to the basement and keep guard for a while. However, there was another problem. They couldn't find Instructor Bayak's body. If Beck is still alive, who knows what he will do when the secret and true nature of the place was revealed. Most of the villagers packed up with their food and bags and left. The doctor was quite annoyed to see that, as they should have stuck around and helped each other, but instead they decided to flee. A while later in the hospital, the doctor tries to insert a syringe into Hira's muscle to give her antibiotics. But the lady refuses to take it because it hurts. It's kind of hilarious that she'd rather face scars from battle, but is afraid of an injection anyway. She leaves the ward and the doctor calls out for the next patient. You see, a temporary vaccine was developed that stopped the infection from spreading among the injured. Since it's only temporary, it must be injected regularly, and it has some side effects. But other than that, it's fine. The fact that everyone survived was thanks to the monster mama and her daughter. The doctor was surprised to learn that Chukbok's mother was a monster, and their DNA actually helped with the research. Meanwhile, young Ju is recovering from surgery, and all she needs to do now is wake up. The doctor is sure that she'll be so happy when she sees the village. And he's certain she'll shed tears when she sees her daughter and the freed village. He's hoping she wakes up soon. Although the doctor has narrated everything about the others, he's also dealing with some serious stuff that he just can't wrap his head around. The connection between Chukbok and her monster mom is driving him crazy because the results of his research are totally unexpected. The scene then transitions into a past event outside where the entire place is run by monsters. A giant mutated monster is following the trail of fresh human blood, and that trail leads it to Instructor Bayek, who's standing there totally bruised and battered. He finds himself in a nightmarish situation. Not only is the weapon he's holding shabby, but there's also this giant mutated monster in front of him. To make things worse, he's bleeding heavily, and the juicy smell of his blood is making the monster even hungrier. But then someone hits the monster right in its head. The one who took down this beast is the yellow-eyed bastard, the guy everyone calls their father. He doesn't waste any time before asking Beck for all the juicy details he might have regarding recent events. In a matter of minutes, Beck fills the yellow-eyed bastard in on how the village was lost after the principal and the founder died. Now that he's brought shame and failure to his father, Beck is sure he can no longer be called his son. But he's grateful that his father gave life to everyone when they had no hope. Even though they ended up losing the precious village their father had bestowed upon them, he begs his father to grant him powers like the other family members. As he wants revenge on those who wronged them, he knows it's a foolish request. But he still hopes it will be fulfilled. The one-eyed bastard turns to Beck and takes his life immediately. As far as this bastard is concerned, he is nothing more than a useless trash after killing this power-hungry shithead. The yellow-eyed bastard sighs deeply. He regrets ever trusting these fools with the responsibility of Hope Village. He's lost so much only to have to start from the beginning again. His main concern now is our mama, who has grown even stronger. He doesn't think he has time to waste here. As soon as he says this, his attention is grabbed by someone creeping up behind the stair cabin. This person believes that if they send more family members, they'll all die needlessly. So rushing things isn't the best idea. The one-eyed bastard quickly responds that he's already figured out what needs to be done. This time he plans to go himself. But the person behind the stair cabin reminds him that the risk is high. The father insists that he has no choice. But he's hoping for some help. He's confident that his son Jack will assist him. Jack finally shows himself and promises to do his best for the sake of his father. The one-eyed bastard thinks to himself that if only he had his full body, nothing would be impossible. His mind flashes back to the past, where his body got ripped apart while trying to attack the pregnant mama. It was the moment he lost his body, but the key to getting it back lies with the child Chukbok. Since Chukbok is not affected by the light at all, the one-eyed bastard is certain she must be holding on to the core. If only he could get his hands on her body, his plan would be at least half successful. So because of this reason, capturing Chukbok becomes his top priority. 2 months have passed since the tragedy that hit the village, and life has returned to normal. Everyone in the village is upbeat again. We meet Chukbok, who looks absolutely adorable in her new clothes. Her parents are visibly moved to see her in this outfit. The girl gives her mother a little smooch on her cheek while the father forcefully steals one for himself. Afterward, Chukbok heads out for school. Later, we see her struggling with her studies, but she eventually gets an answer correct, which earns her a pat from her teacher. However, things aren't going as smoothly for Yang-hee, who ends up getting scolded by the teacher, who is also her mother, as they bicker back and forth. Little Chukbok quietly solves all the questions on her own. Seeing how diligently Chukbok had been working, the teacher decides to call it a day. Both girls decide to step outside for some fresh air. Young Ju, on the other hand, insists on staying behind. With that, the two girls leave on their own and enjoy some fun playing together outside. As they play around, Chukbok stumbles across some of the villagers, who grow annoyed at her presence. They recognize her as the daughter of a monster and immediately tell her to go away. They all know about her strange finger that is hidden under this bandage. And they give her condescending, contemptuous looks as if she is the most disgusting thing to ever exist. The poor girl gets terrified and bolts out of the place while these two witches keep mocking her. Right at that moment, Hira shows up on the scene. And suddenly the loud mouths who were trash-talking earlier are terrified. They quickly try to greet Hira as if nothing happened. But Hira isn't letting them off that easily. She snaps at them, telling them to get on the ground. Honestly, I hope these two finally get humbled for good. Meanwhile, dawn is almost breaking, and somewhere in the village we see poor Chuckbox sitting quietly, looking somber. Her father approaches her, asking what's bothering her. Chuckbox replies that she just wants to go home. Her father reminds her that going back isn't safe. Right now the bad monsters know where their home is, and returning would be dangerous. Chuckbox acknowledges this, but she adds that while the monsters are scary, the people hurting her mom are even worse. Some people here are nice, but others can be just as cruel. She tells her father that she believes her mom is a good person, a warm and kind mother who loves her family, but when people say mean things about her mom, it really hurts her feelings. Her father nods and gently reassures her, saying that there's always a way to make things better. He explains that people are scared of what they don't understand. If they can show everyone who her mom truly is, then the villagers will stop fearing her and might even love her. Later that night, while Mama is getting ready to head out for supplies and food for the villagers, the reactions around her are mixed. Some people appreciate her noble efforts, but others are still pissed, stubbornly believing she's just a monster. Thankfully, not everyone among her critics is awful. A few kind souls step up to support her, fully showing their faith in her. Even so, our poor mama can't help but feel a bit anxious hearing all the nasty things people are saying about her. But just as her worries start to creep in, she hears the voice of her daughter, who loudly declares to everyone that her mama is the nicest person ever, and always so kind to her. Gumball does not hold back when it comes to expressing his love for Mama as well. All this unexpected flattery makes Mama blush like crazy, overwhelmed by suddenly being the center of attention. It seems like Chuckbox's charm is starting to work its magic, because the mood in the crowd has begun to turn positive. People begin to feel happier and more positive all of a sudden. Meanwhile, Hira is still off somewhere dealing with those two loudmouth girls who clearly needed a lesson in how to behave themselves. The scene transitions, and there we are introduced to a couple who just took down a monster, completely blowing its head off. After their victory, they decide to head to Hope Village. They've heard rumors that the yellow-eyed monster is there, and this guy is itching to take it down with his own hands. The scene transitions back to Chuckbox, who is happily showing off her new teddy bear that her mom and dad stuffed for her. It's a special gift from her parents, as a reward for being such a good girl. However, Hira isn't too impressed. She bluntly says the toy isn't all that cute and claims she could make a better one. Chuckbox, unfazed, mentions she hasn't named the toy yet and asks Hira if she has any good suggestions. Hira, being her straightforward self, gets lost in thought for a moment. Eventually, she suggests the name Soa, explaining that it means beauty and prosperity. As soon as Chuckbox hears the name, she remembers something. She remembers a time when Hira, while half unconscious, was subconsciously muttering the name Soa. Chuckbox happily responds that she likes the name and promises to take good care of the toy. At one point, Hira mentions that the name is precious to her, but before Chuckbox can ask about its origin, Yonghee comes running in, announcing that there are newcomers in the village. For some reason, she says her mother is in trouble and needs help. The scene then shifts to the center of the village, where the crowd of villagers is gathered outside, listening to a loud commotion coming from the office room. The big guy we saw earlier is clearly excited when he sees Yongju working independently despite her handicap. Yongju tries to thank him, but she chokes on her own saliva as she says it too loudly. Just then Hira enters, and Yongju quickly introduces the new couple. The big guy is Chunbei, and since he can't hear well, Yongju had to yell everything out for him. The girl with him is his daughter Yujung. For a moment I thought they were a couple, but I guess I was wrong. Yongju promptly introduces Hira as their ultimate weapon, and beside her is Chuckbox, the cute little one. Hira quickly notices that Yujung seems to be staring at her with a contemptuous look, and she has no idea why Yujung keeps staring, so Hira decides to turn up the intensity of her stare, which quickly humbles Yujung, and the girl quickly looks away. Meanwhile, the big guy is excited to see such a quiet little one. He opens his notebook and writes down her name, but he mishears it as Chubby. Chuck Block happily clarifies that it's actually Chuck Block. But the man mishears again and wonders if she said chow chow. Chuck Block corrects him once more. But the big guy still thinks her name is Chuckles. This time Chuck Buck is seriously annoyed, feeling like the old guy is messing with her on purpose. She points at him and firmly says it's Chuck Buck. The big guy quickly grabs Chuck Buck's hand and seeing this Hira grabs him by the collar. Furious that he's overstepping his boundaries. The big guy quickly apologizes for this. He was just curious as he had heard about Chuck Buck's discolored finger, so he was quite amazed. Though the big guy has a question. Just out of curiosity. He asks if there's a yellow-eyed monster here. Of course Hira can tell where this conversation is going. So she responds with nothing but death glares. That's when Yongju chimes in, telling both of them to stop, reminding them there's a child present and they need to calm down. Hira leans closer to the man's ear and asks what he is planning to do when he finds the monster. Before this guy can answer, Gundal breaks the awkward silence by entering the scene. He actually came here looking for Chuck Bok, and asks if she's here. As soon as Chun-Bai turns around, he's startled to see Gumball standing there. It doesn't take long for Gumball to recognize this man as his old master either. To understand the history between Chun-Bai and Gumball. The scene flashes back to the past where Gumball is effortlessly beating the crap out of some guys in front of him. And he is not even breaking a sweat. The opposing gang members start to panic, realizing no one can stop Gumball, especially not with the weapons they have. Gumball's party members are excited, cheering on their friend as he dominates these guys. But Gumball quickly orders his team to loot the enemies before they can escape. And the entire gang charges at their opponents with weapons drawn. Apparently Chun-Bai used to be the captain of that same squad. Before Gumball joined, Chun-Bai is having a bit of fun poking at Gumball for marrying a monster. Just as the old guy keeps going on, his daughter Yujung gathers her courage and hesitantly asks Gumball if he does not regret it. Of course Gumball has no idea what she's talking about, so in response, Yujung reminds him that by marrying a monster he became the target of the cannibal tribe. That means they'll eventually come back for him. And he'll have to protect his family from the danger. She wonders if he regrets his decision to start a family now. Hearing this, Gumball goes quiet. His mind flashes to the pleasant memories from when he first met the helpless monster mama, who was desperately trying to protect her newborn child. The scene transitions to almost 6 years ago. Back then, Gumball secretly tries to slip away from the party to meet his monster wife, but one day Yujong questions him about where he's going. He quickly makes up an excuse, saying he's going on a patrol to double-check that everything is clear. He promises to return soon and leaves, leaving Yujong quite annoyed. Meanwhile, her father teases her, joking that maybe Gundal has a girlfriend. He's sneaking off to meet. This thought doesn't sit well with Yujong at all. As we know, it turns out to be true. Not exactly a girlfriend. But Gumball goes to see the monster mama, who has a little kid with her. At this point their relationship is just beginning, so the monster mama is still very wary of him. But Gumball reassures her that he's only brought some things she might need. He quietly places all the supplies he brought under the shade, including baby formula, clothes, and blankets. Afterwards Gumball turns to leave and walks away. However, instead of actually leaving, he hides behind a nearby building wall, secretly watching how the monster mama reacts to his gesture. Just as he expected, the monster mama is absolutely thrilled to see all the things he brought. Watching the monster mama's joy from a distance brought Gumball absolute happiness. He loved seeing her so happy, and over time he began spending more and more time with her. Days passed, nights came. And they didn't even realize how their bond had grown stronger. Along with all that, Chuck Buck was also growing. At some point Gumball realizes just how close he's gotten to her, without even noticing, and it makes him blush a little. All the while, the members of the opposing gang were keeping a close eye on Gumball's actions. One day when Gumball returns to the monster mama, he finds out that the baby has caught a fever. Panicked, the big guy rushes out with all the strength he can muster to find some medicine. If he's late, he might have to say goodbye to Chuck Buck. But as he's desperately making his way through this desolate city, he gets ambushed by his enemies. It looks like her excitement is not going to last long.